Chapter 622. When Blue Dragon Group's 30 overmembers heard that, their expressions instantly changed as they swiftly turned around, wanting to save Ji Tsong Tian and his group of brothers. "Stand right there!" A chilly command was heard, making one shudder. Those 30 overmembers subconsciously stopped in their tracks as their bodies stiffened, not daring to move. Yiqing Luo walked slowly towards them as her devastatingly beautiful face was masked with a faint layer of frost. Step by step, she walked extremely slowly. Every single step she took made an extremely soft sound. In those members' ears, it was as though that step had stepped on the bottom of their hearts. Heavy, powerless, unable to resist. Yiqing Luo's eyes were like ice as she calmly glanced at them. "Your group leader has already handed over your authority in the Magic Beast Forest to me. We're going to save." Before they could finish their words, they were interrupted by Yiqing Luo's ridiculing laughter. "Save? It's too late. You're all very clear on how much your group leader values that princess. She won't be able to hold on for much longer, and your group leader must have hastened his pace. By now, he should have already met with those killers." The 30 overmembers' expressions turned uglier by the minute. Their original admiration towards Yiqing Luo had now turned into thick anger. As compared to their admiration towards Yiqing Luo, they were more inclined towards the Blue Dragon mercenary group which they had gotten along with for the past few years. There were simply too many brothers here who had once gone through life and death together. Yiqing Luo actually schemed for the killers to assassinate the Blue Dragon Group. She wanted to borrow the killers' hands to kill Ji Tsong Tian. They were going to save Ji Tsong Tian. No matter how inconsiderate today's group leader was, no matter how much he made their hearts turn cold because of Lan Ling No. Group leader was after all the group leader. This was a deeply ingrained fact. As long as you're still Blue Dragon mercenary group's mercenaries, you have to listen to my commands obediently. Yiqing Luo's lips curled slightly as she raised her index finger and gave an enchanting smile. "Your group leader personally promised me." More than 30 members, who had lifted their feet, abruptly retracted their feet. Yes, this was the deal that Ji Tsong Tian and Yiqing Luo had made. In the Magic Beast Forest, they must help the World Group to complete their mission, unconditionally coordinating with Yiqing Luo's actions. But if they knew that Ji Tsong Tian and the others were being chased by the killers and they still stood by the side, how were they going to face Blue Dragon Group? One side was love, the other side was righteousness. They really didn't know how to choose. Even if you rush over now, it's of no use. Yiqing Luo's eyes were filled with ridicule as she stared at the struggling expressions of these group members. His voice suddenly paused as he gave an innocent smile. "Of course, if you insist on going against the deal and leave the World Group, I won't force you." Since they had already spoken to this extent, would they dare to leave so easily? Blue Dragon Mercenary Group was preparing to upgrade to a Silver Plate Mercenary Group, and they must not have any negative comment. They had totally witnessed Yiqing Luo's mouth. If they really left now to save Ji Tsong Tian and the others, Yiqing Luo could totally spread the news of Blue Dragon Group violating the deal. At that time, when the Mercenary Union was reviewing the Mercenary Group's promotion, if they discovered this dark secret, it was very likely that the Mercenary Group's promotion would fail. Thinking of this, they gritted their teeth and suppressed the displeasure in their hearts. They stood where they were and did not mention anything about leaving. Chapter 623. The black-robed man struggled with all his might as his eyes opened wide, revealing a ferocious gaze as he bared his teeth in an attempt to intimidate Xiao Jin. The black-robed man had heard Yiqing Luo and the rest's conversation clearly, and had heard everything clearly. These children, who looked to be no more than 15 or 16 years old, actually had such deep scheming minds. Not only did they discover him who was hiding in the dark, they were even able to swiftly counterattack. Killing with a borrowed knife? This wasn't merely killing with a borrowed knife. It would also cause the Blue Dragon Mercenary Group to form a feud with their killer alliance. even if they had recognized the wrong person and killed the wrong person. But in Ji Tsongtian's eyes, he would definitely ascertain that these killers were here for him, Ji Tsongtian. The black-robed man struggled to send out a signal flare, trying to warn his partner. But Xiao Jin's hands, which were clasping the killer's arms, were extremely tight. Who sent you here? Yiqing Luo walked towards the black-robed man as her vision swept past him. Who's your target? Pui. The black-robed man spat out fiercely. Damn. You still dare to be so arrogant in my hands. Xiao Jin instantly exploded as he threw him onto the ground and immediately stomped on the black-robed man's chest. This stomp was filled with strength. The black-robed man coughed fiercely as blood spurted out from his mouth. He kept on coughing violently as his body kept on shaking. A wooden token slid out from his messy, open shirt. The black-robed man's eyes widened in terror as he stretched out his hand in an attempt to snatch that wooden token back. His hand had just stretched out when it was stepped on by a petite foot. A fair little hand picked up that wooden token. The totem carved on the wooden token was extremely exquisite. From that outline it looked similar to a bat. In the middle of the wooden token, there were 3 words carved in flamboyant calligraphy: Killer Alliance. Killer Alliance? Yen Xiaoyi screamed out in astonishment. Killer Alliance, that was one of the top assassins in Nirvana Realm. One must know that the weakest assassin in Killer Alliance was at Mystic Profound 5th grade realm, and their movements were remarkable. Furthermore, even if you had money, you might not be able to hire the assassins from Killer Alliance. If you wanted to hire the assassins from Killer Alliance, you had to go through connections. Ordinary people naturally heard of Killer Alliance's reputation. Especially those 30 over Blue Dragon group members, their faces were steely green as they clenched their fists tightly. An assassin from the Assassin's Alliance, those brothers, can they fight against these killers? A few of the members could no longer hold back their worry for their brothers and ran towards the 4th level. With one person taking the lead, the other members couldn't hold it in any longer. The reputation of a mercenary group was important. But if they were to watch their brothers die, they really couldn't do it. At most, after saving those brothers, they would leave Blue Dragon Mercenary Group. With this thought in mind, the members left one by one. You people! Yen Xiaoyi chased up a few steps and pointed at those group members as she scolded. Ungrateful! Leaving just like that, you really are a dog that can't be tamed. In Yen Xiaoyi and the others' hearts, Yiqing Luo really took good care of these 30 over group members. Xiaoyi. Yiqing Luo called out to Yen Xiaoyi as she clenched the wooden token in her hand tightly. Raising her eyes, she gave an extremely calm smile. If they don't go and save their brothers, I would instead look down on them. The Blue Dragon Group was their home. The members of the Blue Dragon Corps were their family and their brothers. If they really did not care about their brother's life and death to that extent, then they would really be known as a dog that can't be tamed. Looking at those people's departing figures, Yiqing Luo was even more certain of these people's character. These people should have a better place to develop. Chapter 624. You're thinking of. Long Yunzhan's handsome brows creased slightly, as though he was aware of Yiqing Luo's thoughts. Yiqing Luo tossed the wooden token into the profound phoenix ring and nodded decisively. Yes. Long Yunzhan frowned even more. The surrounding youths did not understand the riddle between them and asked curiously. Yiqing Luo only gave a mysterious smile. Killer's Alliance. Yiqing Luo shot her gaze towards the black-robed man. The person who hired your Killer's Alliance is Yuchi family's patriarch, right? The black-clothed man no longer had the strength to struggle. He lay limply on the ground, coughing out a mouthful of blood from time to time. He looked half dead. The black-robed man didn't reply, and Yiqing Luo couldn't be bothered to interrogate further. He continued, Your target is me. The black-clothed man was still half dead. Yiqing Luo's eyes went into a blank as a bloodthirsty smile appeared, looking at Xiao Jin. Kill him. Killed? Xiao Jin was startled. He hadn't even gotten any information from the black-clothed man, and he was killed just like that? Kill. Yiqing Luo said without hesitation. She could already confirm that the Yuchi family had hired assassins from the Assassins Association. She should have guessed that the Yuchi family head had lost face in front of everyone, and it might even endanger the Yuchi family's position. How could the Yuchi family head let her off so easily? Patriarch Yuchi wished for nothing more than for her to die. These killers were professionally trained killers. They were a group of desperados who did not care about their own lives at all. Moreover, the habit of not being able to complete a mission, no matter how big the world was, had long been ingrained in his bones. Towards those who were bent on killing her, Yiqing Luo would absolutely not be lenient. The Yuchi family. There was no rush. Prey had to be slowly teased. Only then would it be interesting. After battling with Child Een and hundreds of intermediate and high-leveled magical beasts, these youths obviously felt that their abilities had become much stronger. When it came to the rest of the mission, it was practically effortless for him to obtain the magical beast's corpse. Even the eagle beast, which was the most difficult to deal with, was completed with everyone's help. During the mission, the 30 or so members who had left also returned to the team. Their expressions were ugly and the gazes they used to look at Yiqing Luo were filled with hatred. Yiqing Luo could tell. She was right. Ji Tsong Tian and the others were blocked by the killers at the entrance of the magic beast forest. Furthermore, Ji Tsong Tian brought Lan Ling Nua as they abandoned those group members and escaped. Those members had all died in the hands of the Assassin Alliance's assassins. Yiqing Luo thought that these group members would at least accuse her of being cold-blooded, accusing her of knowing everything but allowing things to happen. But from beginning to end, none of them spoke a single word. And towards Yiqing Luo and the rest's arrangements and deployment, they were extremely cooperative. When the youngsters were in charge of killing the beasts, Yiqing Luo and Bei Ming Lu were in charge of 3 medicinal herb harvesting missions. After being promoted to Mystic Profound 8th grade, Yiqing Luo clearly felt that no matter if it was speed or skill, it had all increased by more than one level. While picking the herbs, she still had the leisure to tease the magical beasts guarding the herbs. By the time they finished all 10 missions and walked out of the magical beast forest, it was already close to midnight. In the pitch-black night sky, a bright moon hung high in the sky, dotted with stars. Having stayed in the magical beast forest for an entire day, the youths immediately felt that the outside world was too beautiful. He no longer had to endure the stench of magical beasts' blood. He no longer had to endure the gloomy cold air from the surroundings. Most importantly, the 10 missions were all completed. The youngsters walked out of the magical beast forest's cold entrance, not bothering about the corpses strewn all over the place, not bothering about the other teams who passed by them. Chapter 6:25. The 30 over members who had been silent swept a glance at those youngsters lying on the ground. Their gazes swept past those corpses as their brows creased slightly. Following that, they cupped their fists in a manner that wasn't considered polite but wasn't lacking in manners. Since your group's mission has been completed, we've also completed the transaction between the 2 groups, so we shall take our leave now. Saying that, the group of them turned around and left. Wait a minute. Yiqing Luo's clear voice was like a pearl falling on a plate as it reverberated in this silent and spacious magic beast forest entrance. 30 over members stopped in their tracks. Does Miss Yi have any other instructions? Their words had pulled the distance between the 2 of them apart, as though they didn't want to be involved with Yiqing Luo at all. Admiring someone was easy. Hating someone was also very easy. At this very moment, in the 30 over members' eyes, Yiqing Luo was an extremely vicious lady who was adept at scheming. In order to protect herself, she didn't mind sacrificing other people's lives. Yiqing Luo seemed as though she couldn't see the disdain and disgust in the members' eyes as she revealed a sweet smile and took out a piece of xian paper and a pen from the profound phoenix ring. She picked up the pen and wrote the world group's 3 words on the xian paper and immediately removed the mercenary group badge. Twisting the pin on the mercenary group badge, it was a symbol of vice group leader's seal. Yiqing Luo stamped the top of the xian paper, and her slender fingers folded the xian paper neatly as she passed it to those members. The leader's expression changed as his brows furrowed. What do you mean by this? A piece of xian paper stamped with vice group leader's badge meant that she wanted to poach them openly? Didn't she despise them for being too old? Their looks weren't high enough? Yiqing Luo smiled charmingly as her long and narrow eyes revealed a captivating charm. As you think. This was the first time they saw someone poaching other mercenary groups' mercenaries in such an open and above-board manner. Give up, we are Blue Dragon Mercenary Group's mercenaries, we will only. Don't be in a hurry to reject me. Yiqing Luo interrupted the member's oaths with a smiling face as her fair fingers waved the xian paper. I admire your characters and am extremely interested in unpolished jades like you. The faces of more than 30 members twisted. Since they were unpolished jade, what was there to admire? Weren't they supposed to boast about it when they were poaching people? What kind of disparagement was this? You need to polish yourselves. You need to find the right way to guide them. Yiqing Luo ignored the expressions on their faces as she said word by word. This is the proof that I'm giving you. You can keep it first, perhaps. You might need it in future. Of course, if you're completely sure that you want to place your future and your life on the Blue Dragon Mercenary Group, then you can directly tear this piece of paper. The leader of the group stared at the paper with a hesitant expression. Listening to a 15-year-old girl say in an extremely mature manner that she wanted to guide them and polish them, this piece of unpolished jade. This feeling, it was so King strange. However, none of them could refute him. They had already seen Yiqing Luo's ability in the Magic Beast Forest. However, why was she so confident that they would definitely keep her proof? The leader's peripheral vision swept past the expressions of the few people beside him as he stretched out his hand and received that xian paper. In front of Yiqing Luo, he was about to tear it down. We don't need it. Chapter 626. Yiqing Luo spoke extremely slowly as her voice was filled with gentleness, leisurely and contented. She didn't anxiously hope that they would agree, nor did she have the feeling that it didn't matter whether they agreed or not. She just calmly stated the truth. Your choice to me doesn't have much use. But to you, it's a choice of fate. Yiqing Luo saw the leader's hand, which was about to tear the paper, stopped as he stiffly maintained the action of tearing the paper. He was stunned for some time before he stiffly moved his arm. What do you have to make us believe you? Yiqing Luo's smile was brimming with confidence. Based on the fact that I'm Yiqing Luo. The 30 or so members were completely stunned. Just how arrogant was this young lady? Based on the fact that she was Yiqing Luo. She had that much confidence in herself? Not knowing why, the group members had an urge to believe her. In their minds, the scene of what Ji Tsongtian had done for Lan Ling Nuo appeared, which made one's heart turn cold. Looking at the ground full of corpses, their hearts ached. The main culprit of all these was Yiqing Luo. But Ji Tsongtian definitely had something to do with it. Ji Tsongtian abandoned his own brothers, and under his brothers' cover, he left. Yet these brothers of his had died here. Their group leader abandoned them. His 5 fingers curled up one by one. The leader of the group grabbed the piece of paper in his hand, as though he was making a huge decision. In the end, the leader kept the paper into his bosom as he gritted his teeth. I hope that we will never have the chance to meet again. Yiqing Luo smiled in disbelief. I'm afraid this chance is not too far away. The 30 or so members left angrily. Looking at their departing figures, Kitty Lee blinked her watery eyes as she hooked onto Yiqing Luo's arm. Sister, why did you give them that piece of proof? The World Group, which was personally written by Yiqing Luo, was stamped by the Vice Group leader. This piece of paper represented Yiqing Luo. Giving this piece of paper to those people in Blue Dragon Group, Wasn't she afraid that these despicable people would use that piece of proof to secretly do some sinister things? Momentarily, everyone was unable to understand Yiqing Luo's thoughts. These people, if we can rope them in and keep them for our own use, as long as we give them enough sincerity, they will definitely follow us through life and death. In just a short period of time, Yiqing Luo had already understood these people's characters. These people valued friendship and loyalty. With proper training, it wouldn't take long for them to stand on their own in the mercenary world. But aren't we going to be in the academy? Yan Xiaoyi didn't understand what Yiqing Luo meant. All the members of the world group were all students of the devil class. They went to school together and cultivated together on holidays. They only had 3 days a month. If he were to accept these people into the world group, wouldn't it be a huge mess? A portion of them are students of the Celestial Phoenix Academy. Their holidays are the same as ours. Yiqing Luo explained patiently. The other group are professional mercenaries, relying on completing missions to support themselves. We can establish a second group, and when we are all in the academy, we can represent the world group to head to the Mercenary Association to accept missions and grind for some honor points. Qiao Jin shook his head in disagreement. Even if it's the second group, they still represent the world group. If they were to use this opportunity to defame us. Chapter 6:27. I understand Qing Luo's intention. Long Yunzhan nodded. I agree. Yiqing Luo's lips curled as she exchanged glances with him and smiled. It was because Long Yunzhan didn't reject her intention earlier. That was why Yiqing Luo passed the proof to those group members after they left the Magic Beast Forest. Long Yunzhan didn't reject this decision. The others would also agree and listen to her. The riddle which the two of them were playing earlier was because of this matter. Seeing that Long Yunzhan had already spoken, the other youngsters had their suspicions, but they still chose to believe in their judgment. They knew that Yiqing Luo and Long Yunzhan would absolutely not harm the world group. Lil Luo, today's biggest contributor is me. Don't tell me you shouldn't give me a little special reward? An arm went past Yiqing Luo's hand as it circled around her slender waist. Following that, a refreshing and elegant sandalwood fragrance assaulted their nostrils. The man's broad embrace was tightly pressed against the woman's soft back. His smooth lower jaw was pressed against Yiqing Luo's shoulder as his voice was deep and mellow. The other hand went past her other shoulder as it clasped her lower jaw. He forced her gaze to look in his direction. Yiqing Luo's thick and dense eyelashes fluttered like a butterfly's wings, her bright pupils reflected that peerless beauty of a face. That pair of watery peach blossom eyes gazed at her lovingly. Yiqing Luo's heart suddenly trembled as she felt her cheeks turning red, as though her energy had been sucked dry by him. Evildoer. A living evildoer who could bring calamity to the country and people. Her peripheral vision saw those youngsters' ridiculing gazes, and Yiqing Luo's cheeks turned even hotter as she turned around and faced Diamo Xian as she pushed his chest. Nonsense, the biggest contributor is obviously me. Then I'll give you a reward. The man's voice had just ended when Yiqing Luo felt her lower jaw tightening. Following that, a warm touch covered her pink lips. That elegant sandalwood fragrance became more and more intense as it spread in her mouth. His kiss was strong and overbearing as it sealed her struggles and sealed her consciousness. What remained was only a kiss that was compatible with him. In Yiqing Luo's mind, it was as though there was a taut string that suddenly broke apart. A scorching flame was burning in his body. Bit by bit, it eroded her will. Yiqing Luo's little hand, which was on Diamo Xian's chest, gradually reduced in strength. Diamo Xian hugged her slender waist tighter and tighter, as though he wanted to melt her into his bones. Just as Yiqing Luo's consciousness started to blur and was about to sink into oblivion, her peripheral vision swept onto the youngsters who were standing by the side, staring at them in a daze. Yiqing Luo's face suddenly flushed red. Yiqing Luo didn't know where the energy came from as she pushed him away fiercely, Who wants your reward? This monster. If it was in private, it would be fine if the two of them were intimate. Kissing her in front of all these brothers, with so many pairs of eyes, how was she going to maintain her dignity in front of her brothers in the future? Yiqing Luo's face was so red that it looked like water was about to drip out. Qing Luo, it's alright, you guys carry on, just treat as if we don't exist. That's right. We're already used to being abused. You don't have to worry about us at all. If you want to kiss us, kiss us. If you want to hug us, hug us. The youngsters' ridiculing words came one after another. It was because of their ridicule that the atmosphere became relaxed once again. Today's exhaustion in the magic beast forest was swept away in the laughter. Hearing the youngsters' ridicule, Yiqing Luo's face turned red as she stared resentfully at Dmo Xian. But she saw him clutching his chest as his brows creased slightly. Chapter 628. Yiqing Luo's heart thumped. She suddenly thought of something as the smile on her lips disappeared. She took quick steps towards Dmo Xian as she stretched out her hand and tugged his collar. You, come with me. As expected, with this tug, she could clearly feel that his body was slightly stiff, although Dmo Xian maintained his smile and gentle gaze. But that slight crease on his brows, Yiqing Luo saw it clearly. Go back to the mansion and have a good rest. We'll be returning to the academy tomorrow. Yiqing Luo turned her head to look at those youngsters who were sniggering behind her as she couldn't be bothered to explain to them. I'll be back later, no need to wait for me. It's alright if you don't come back, we all understand. It's the last day of the holiday, just accompany the Overlord well. Tomorrow Qing Luo still needs to go to the academy. Overlord, you'd better take it easy. Yiqing Luo. Damn it, indeed she had no way to establish her prestige. These youngsters weren't afraid of her. Little Nine. Yiqing Luo shouted and Little Nine's tail shook. The palm-sized fox instantly turned into a huge fox. Under the group of youngsters, I understand gazes, Yiqing Luo's face turned black as she grabbed Dmo Xian's hand and leapt onto Little Nine's back. Yiqing Luo's destination was that garden which Dmo Xian had given her the map of Death God Castle. The garden was still filled with flowers as hundreds of flowers bloomed. The fragrance in the air lingered around her nose. Standing in the middle of the flowers, Dmo Xian's eyes were filled with smiles. His curved peach blossom eyes were long and narrow with a demonic charm. Little Luo, the same location, the same you and me, are you hinting me to do what we did here that day? His tone was extremely joyous. That pitch-black obsidian-like eyes started to spread out as it started to thicken. Yiqing Luo wasn't like the past, revealing a lady's coquettish side because of Dmo Xian's teasing. Her expression was grave as she grabbed Dmo Xian's extended wrist and with a tilt, she pressed him into the flowers. Yiqing Luo sat on Dmo Xian's abdomen as her hands tore his clothes. Dmo Xian caught the two little hands which were pulling randomly as he placed it by his lips and planted a kiss on it. Little Luo, are you trying to force yourself? His tone was evil, and his long and narrow eyes exuded a devilish charm that was incomparably alluring. Yiqing Luo didn't say a word as her face was still sunken, struggling to tug at his clothes. Little Luo. Dmo Xian's voice abruptly turned heavier as he tightened his grip on her wrist. Stop fooling around. Why are you hiding? Yiqing Luo sneered as her charming eyes were filled with chilliness. I forced myself on you, shouldn't you feel happy? If it was during normal times, Dmo Xian would definitely turn from guest to host. Indeed, I'm very happy. Dmo Xian stared into her eyes and spoke in a serious tone. But Lil Luo, you're a lady and a lady's reputation is very important. I hope that the relationship between us can be placed on our wedding night, and take it a step deeper. Pooh! Yiqing Luo's sneer grew thicker. Since when did Dmo Xian know what reputation was? He had always done things his own way and did not care about what others thought of him. Talk about honor with her now? But I can't wait. Yiqing Luo's wrist nimbly flipped as she held Dmo Xian's hand, while her other hand speedily unbuttoned his clothes. A soft sigh which could not be heard came from the depths of Diamo Xian's throat. His clothes were open, revealing a muscular chest. But, on that chest, there was an extremely glaring red, piercing Yi Qing Luo's eyes. Chapter 629. Why didn't you tell me you were injured? Yi Qing Luo stared at the red gauze, her fingers trembling as she touched it. However, before he could touch the gauze, he retracted his hand while trembling. Diamo Xian was injured. The high and mighty Di Zun was injured. It's not a big injury. I'm fine. Diamo Xian's lips twitched slightly as he raised his hand to caress Yi Qing Luo's fine black hair. I didn't tell you because I was afraid you would be worried. There was so much blood flowing from this wound. How could it be just a small injury? If it was just a small injury, a few pills could solve it. Why would there be so much blood? Suddenly, Yi Qing Luo recalled something. That map. The bloodstains on the map. Yi Qing Luo's heart suddenly trembled. Your injury. Was it when you went to Death God Castle to help me draw the map, you got injured? That's right, the bloodstains on the map. Ever since Diamo Xian dashed into Death God Castle, and brought her away from Zhu Wuxian, she thought that she had guessed wrongly and assumed that Diamo Xian wasn't injured, hence she didn't probe further. If she hadn't noticed that something was wrong with his expression, she probably wouldn't have noticed it. A sense of vexation and guilt towards Diamo Xian arose from the bottom of her heart. She was not a qualified woman who could stay by Diamo Xian's side. She had never properly cared for Diamo Xian. It would only create one trouble after another for Diamo Xian. The more she thought, the tighter Yi Qing Luo's heart became. There was a suffocating feeling in her throat. It was so uncomfortable that she couldn't even breathe smoothly. His nose felt sour, as if something was about to gush out of his eyes. No. Diamo Xian answered without any hesitation, seeing through the guilt and thoughts in Yi Qing Luo's eyes. His long arm stretched out and pulled Yi Qing Luo into his embrace. Don't let your imagination run wild, I'm fine. His reply was straightforward and decisive, but it also indirectly proved that this injury was indeed the injury suffered in Death God Castle. For her, he had been injured, and for her, he had stayed by her side with his injuries. He had been pretending to be fine because he didn't want her to worry. Yi Qing Luo's eyes gradually turned red. How could this man be so foolish? Feeling heartache? Diamo Xian's fingers slowly brushed past Yi Qing Luo's cheeks. His fingertips paused at the corner of her eyes. If you can't bear to let me feel pain, kiss me and it won't hurt anymore. You. Even at this moment, he could still act like a hooligan with a straight face. Yi Qing Luo stared at Diamo Xian as she suddenly pushed his hand away. He took out some pills and gauze from the profound phoenix ring. You knew that I would be worried, yet you still hid the fact that you were injured. Yi Qing Luo pursed her pink lips, her eyes filled with anger. You only let me know now, I'm even more worried, all right. She untied Diamo Xian's bloody gauze and threw it aside. Yi Qing Luo then looked seriously at the wound on Diamo Xian's chest. It was a wound caused by a sharp weapon. The wound was not deep, but it happened to be close to the heart. Fortunately, Diamo Xian managed to evade in time and did not suffer any fatal injuries. Sharp weapons. Yi Qing Luo's pupils contracted, as she was already certain that Diamo Xian's injury was caused when he was challenging the mechanisms in Death God Castle, when he triggered the mechanism. That was also such an intricate map. The route towards the exquisite pagoda was drawn out clearly, and every single mechanism was marked out clearly. If it wasn't for the fact that he had tried every single mechanism, how could it be drawn out so intricately? The contours of Diamo Xian's face were extremely gentle, and the gaze which he gazed at Yi Qing Luo was filled with tenderness and pampering. One was bandaging his wound, while the other was staring at her tenderly and sweetly. The breeze blew as the flower petals danced. Pieces of flower petals were like dancing butterflies, lingering between the two of them. Chapter 630. After Yi Qing Luo was done with the bandaging, she helped Dmo Xian to adjust his clothes properly and was about to speak. His line of sight met with a calm, sleeping face. A man with outstanding looks, no matter from which angle, was so handsome that it made one want to scream. Not knowing when, he had fallen into a deep sleep. He was in a deep sleep. Even when she slowly moved her body and laid down beside him, he didn't wake up. Usually, he was vigilant and could even sense a gust of wind. His injury was too serious. Yi Qing Luo's heart ached as she pursed her lips tightly, as she half propped up her body and leaned beside him, staring at his face. The man in his sleep, his brows were tightly knitted into a bundle. Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but stretched out her hand and swept past the wrinkles between his brows, as she gently caressed it. Perhaps it was the softness of her fingers, perhaps it was the gentleness of her fingertips, perhaps it was the familiarity of her scent. That tightly knitted brows slowly smoothed out. Lil Luo a soft murmur spilled out from his thin lips. Following that, her hand was accurately held in the palm of the man's hand. His fingers tightened, as though he was holding the most precious thing in the world, tightly gripping it. Her heart suddenly increased the rate of its beating. Every time, it fiercely pounded against her throat. A gush of warmth slowly flowed from the bottom of her heart. She held that hand, slowly lowered her body, and planted a kiss on his pale thin lip. Silly girl! A helpless sigh spilled out from between her lips that were so tightly pressed together. The next day, Yi Qing Luo was woken up by Dmo Xian. She rubbed her eyes, got up and was about to tear open Dmo Xian's clothes, wanting to take a look at his wound, and at the same time help him change his dressing, but was stopped by Dmo Xian. She should go to the academy. Yi Qing Luo used both carrot and stick, but was unable to make Dmo Xian loosen his mouth, so she could only helplessly let him return to the palace to recuperate. She was going back to the academy today, so Dmo Xian need not worry about her leading the brothers on experience learning and getting injured. Sending Dmo Xian off on Little Nine with her eyes, Yi Qing Luo then returned to the mansion alone. The youngsters had long put on their academy uniforms, as they lined up neatly in the garden. When they saw Yi Qing Luo, they started to tease Yi Qing Luo that she really didn't return for the entire night. But teasing was just teasing, they still understood Yi Qing Luo's character very well. They were all clear that there was nothing between Yi Qing Luo and Dmo Xian. They were tactful enough not to intentionally ask where Dmo Xian had gone to. Amidst the laughter, everyone's serious mood from early in the morning also became relaxed. The 3 days of their holiday were spent in abundance. There were more than 10 youths who had successfully advanced a grade in these 3 days. As for those who did not advance, they could clearly feel that their physical fitness and overall strength had been greatly improved. This was the power that came from constantly fighting in dangerous situations. Qing Luo. Xiao Jin walked over with a space bag. Last night, Shi Ju came back with a space bag in his mouth. It was filled with. He took out a black suit from his pocket. The flame-like cherry blossom embroidery on his right sleeve was extremely obvious. Wasn't it the uniform that the Blue Dragon mercenary group people wore yesterday? It must be Yi Qing Luo's order for Shi Ju to retrieve these uniforms. Why did Yi Qing Luo want these uniforms? Could it be that she wanted them to wash it before wearing it? Not to mention that these uniforms were tattered in this round's experience learning, ugly and smelly. Just these uniforms, if those Blue Dragon mercenary group members wore them, they wouldn't want to wear them anymore. Chapter 631. Xiao Jin didn't understand why as he carried his space bag, and turned around, calling the youngsters to retrieve firewood from the kitchen as he directly set up a fire in the courtyard. We've given Blue Dragon mercenary group 54 sets. Yi Qing Luo suddenly opened her mouth as she called out to Xiao Jin, "Before you burn it, count how many sets there are." These sets of clothes were indeed brought back by her. Even the group uniforms on those corpses who had died at the entrance of the Magic Beast Forest, Yi Qing Luo also asked Shi Ju to bring them back. She picked up the number of sets which Ji Tsongtian had worn away. Based on Ji Tsongtian's character, after he returned to his own camp and saw his disheveled self, then seeing those 30 overmembers returning, looking at the clothes they were wearing, he would recall the humiliation he had suffered in the magic beast forest. He would definitely be fuming with rage. She asked them to change out of their clothes and throw them out of sight and out of mind. Yiqing Luo wouldn't give them any chance to malign the world group. If one set of clothes was used, it could possibly cause a huge impact on the world group. Yiqing Luo wanted to eliminate all possibilities. Xiao Jin seemed to have understood something as he laughed out loudly. "You're the one who thought it through thoroughly. Burn. Burn all these clothes." Anyway, for the next 1 month, they wouldn't be able to wear the group uniform which belonged to them. They had plenty of time to customize a new batch of uniforms. The material and enchantment as well as the gravity belt had to be done meticulously. These were all things which Yan Xiaoyi had discussed with the tailor's shop early on. They only needed to wait for a month before they could collect it from the tailor's shop. Not long later, the courtyard was lit up with flames as pieces of uniforms were thrown into the flames. A total of 54 pieces, no more and no less. Xiao Jin was burning as he told Yiqing Luo the numbers which he had counted. Yiqing Luo nodded as her heart, which was hanging in the balance, was finally put down. Lighting a fire in the courtyard so early in the morning, are you trying to burn down this huge mansion? Suddenly an old but powerful voice was heard from the end of the courtyard. Following that, they saw an elderly dressed in a white robe walking over leisurely. It seemed as though he had just casually taken a step, but in a blink of an eye, he had already appeared in front of Yiqing Luo and the others. Expert. This was absolutely an expert. The youngsters' gazes were fixed on that elderly. Why did he look a little familiar? Yiqing Luo also had this feeling. He furrowed his brows and stared at the old man as he thought about it for a long time. In the end, he said with uncertainty, "Are you Holy Pirate?" The old man raised his eyebrows and raised his hand to touch his grizzled hair. His eyes were bright. "After taking a bath, trimming my hair, and changing my clothes, I'm so handsome that you can't recognize me?" It was really Holy Pirate. One must know that when he was rescued from Death God Castle's dungeon, he was a person who had not bathed for 10 years. His body was so dirty that he was almost covered in lice and bedbugs. How could she recognize a face that was completely black? After bringing God Thief back to the mansion, Yiqing Luo's entire mind was on the Dark Forces matters and the other missions, totally throwing him aside. He didn't expect Holy Pirate to take care of himself. God knows how much water he had to wash himself to be so clean. "Little girl, are you going to the academy? Go in peace. Leave the mansion and the world group to me." God Thief patted his chest. Why did Yiqing Luo feel that this old man was extremely unreliable? Chapter 632. Yiqing Luo felt that this old man was even more unreliable. However, he was still an old man that he had picked up. Moreover, he was once the #1 holy thief in the Nirvana realm. Even if he had not been able to stretch his muscles and bones for 10 years, he would be able to recover his skills in a few days. Even if he wasn't as powerful as before, he still had the ability to protect himself. As long as he could find the feeling he once had, the holy pirate of the past could return. After all, to become the #1 holy thief, one had to rely on absolute power. She could not bring Holy Pirate to the college. It would be a good idea to let Holy Pirate manage the mansion. What's more, the 30-odd members of the Blue Dragon Group might come to report to him. Yiqing Luo still handed the manor over to God Thief to look after. As for the World Group, Yiqing Luo didn't hand it over to God Thief, only instructing him repeatedly that if anyone were to bring the proof of the World Group's seal over to them, then leave them behind. By the time they had arranged everything, it was already morning, which was around 7 or 8 in the morning. Yiqing Luo and the rest left the mansion. They didn't arrive at the academy together. Instead, they split up into several teams. If he were to stay by Yiqing Luo's side, he would probably become the center of attention again. It would also easily expose the devil class to the public. Yiqing Luo only brought Yi Fengyu along and walked openly through the academy's main entrance. Today was the first day of school, and there was a sea of people at the entrance of the academy, with an endless stream of horses and carriages. After Yiqing Luo and Yi Fengyu walked into the academy, they indeed became the center of attention. After all, what happened in the Three Springs sect on a holiday was too unbelievable. First, Yiqing Jian and Ling Fenghua's secret affair was exposed. It was exposed that they were in the Crown Prince Palace's garden, in broad daylight. Moreover, Yiqing Qian was tormented till she was injured. Of course, if Yiqing Qian and Ling Fenghua were in love with each other, then it was perfectly justifiable. But unfortunately, Ling Fenghua was Yiqing Qian's seventh sister and also Yiqing Luo's fiancée. This was the loss of morals, this was the wrong view of the world. Yiqing Qian's deeds naturally affected Three Springs sect. Naturally it would implicate Yiqing Luo. It was like someone's father was a murderer. Everyone would subconsciously think that the whole family was a murderer when they saw that person's family. While everyone was sympathizing with Yiqing Luo, at the same time, they felt that Yiqing Luo and Yiqing Jian were almost the same. After all, they were taught by the same father. But after that, news of Yiqing Luo clashing with the high profound class students at Heavenly Fortune Inn and finally being taken away by the Overlord's sacred beast, Nine-tailed Fox, started to spread. While everyone was ridiculing Yiqing Qian, no one dared to bring Yiqing Luo along. It could be said that during the 3 days of vacation, the first miss and seventh miss of the Three Springs sect manor had become the talk of the town. You still have the guts to come to the academy? How shameless! Just as everyone was discussing in hushed voices, a sharp and ear-piercing voice rang out. Shortly after, a young girl walked over with her hands on her hip. Yiqing Luo couldn't be bothered, but the young lady was standing right in front of her and stretched out her hand to block her. This was the entrance to the academy, and there were many students coming and going. On seeing that someone dared to find fault with Yiqing Luo, they all stopped in their tracks to watch excitedly. Your eldest sister did such a shameless thing and was chased out of Three Springs City. She's setting off today, aren't you going to send her off? That young lady spoke in a weird tone. Shangguan Liuli. Chapter 633. You! Shangguan Liuli's face turned gloomy as she stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo. Such a huge matter had happened in Three Springs sect. How could Yiqing Luo still remain so calm? Yiqing Qian was her elder sister. The Three Springs sect was her backer. Now that there were rumors and slanderous discussions, she could still smile? Was she intentionally acting so calm, or was she too cold-blooded? Shangguan Liuli's heart seeped out a sliver of coldness. Yiqing Luo's gaze casually swept past the surrounding students as her charming eyes remained calm. Firstly, whatever Yiqing Qian did, she's shameless, and it has nothing to do with me. Secondly, you're an unmarried young lady, and in front of everyone, you dare to say such shameless things that Yiqing Luo had done. This is enough to prove that the thoughts in your mind are also dirty and shameless. When Yiqing Luo said the second point, Shangguan Liuli's steely green face instantly turned red. She clenched her teeth tightly as her 5 fingers clutched the corner of her clothes as her fingertips turned white. You're talking nonsense. I didn't. However, Shangguan Liuli's rebuttal didn't have much confidence. Her imposing manner had been completely suppressed by Yiqing Luo. The surrounding students' gazes towards Shangguan Liuli had also changed. Those pairs of unclear eyes looked at Shangguan Liuli as though her mind was really filled with dirty thoughts. There were even some male students who had already revealed a covetous gaze towards her. Shangguan Liuli had never suffered such humiliation before. Since when had she been stared at in such a blatant manner? Her entire face instantly flushed red from embarrassment and indignation. Her petite body was shaking non-stop as a pair of watery eyes stared resentfully at Yiqing Luo. But Yiqing Luo's expression remained calm, as though she hadn't noticed Shangguan Liuli's vengeful gaze. Or perhaps she totally didn't put Shangguan Liuli in her eyes. Following that, Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled as she revealed an elegant smile. Thirdly, are you sure that Yiqing Qian will be chased out of Three Springs City today? What do you mean? Shangguan Liuli was startled, her beautiful eyes widening. Yiqing Luo's eyes narrowed slightly, her long and narrow eyes revealed a hint of ridicule, regarding the second half of the rumor. I'm afraid the chess player did not tell you about it. A chess player? No matter how silly Shangguan Liuli was, she understood Yiqing Luo's meaning. Xia was being used by someone? Looking at Yiqing Luo's serene eyes, Shangguan Liuli's heart trembled as she suddenly thought of something as her face turned pale. Yesterday, when she had a flower tea gathering with the other ladies from the noble families, she overheard Lu Shuiyu and Lu Shuilan discussing the Three Springs sect. That was when he found out that something huge had happened to Three Springs sect's Yiqing Jian. The Lu sisters kept on shifting the topic to Yiqing Luo, talking about it in a few words. Yiqing Luo and Yiqing Jian were sisters, so naturally they received the same education. Yiqing Qian was shameless and Yiqing Luo must also be a shameless lady. Following that, they started on various topics, pointing out that Yiqing Luo was able to gain Dmo Xian's favor was absolutely because of her foxy skills. Hearing these, Shangguan Liuli, who originally bore a grudge against Yiqing Luo, how could she possibly let go of this chance to ridicule Yiqing Luo? Her reputation was the most important thing for a lady. Because of this, Shangguan Liuli blocked the academy's entrance early in the morning, just to humiliate Yiqing Luo fiercely, ruining her reputation, making her the laughingstock of the entire Three Springs city. But Yiqing Luo's performance was too calm. So calm that Shangguan Liuli started to feel a little guilty. The second half of the rumor. We'll be able to see it soon. Yiqing Luo's gaze shot towards a direction not too far away, as a teasing smile flashed past her eyes. Chapter 634. As expected, at the instance when Yiqing Luo's words had just ended, she heard astonished cries coming from the huge crowd of people. Following that, a luxurious and exquisite carriage, which was inlaid with sparkling crystals, was seen slowly approaching. Wasn't the person in front of the carriage the current second prince Ling Fengying? Ever since Ling Fenghua fell from power, second prince's status had risen along with it. Numerous powerhouses and nobles all treated second prince as the crown prince's candidate, which was the future monarch. Even now, the crown prince's position had yet to be decided. But after all, in the entire West continent, only second prince had the ability to become the crown prince. Because of this, when these people saw Ling Fengying, all of them revealed a fawning smile as they went up to him in an attempt to attract his attention. Especially those elders who were sending their children to school, they all went up to greet him. Ling Fengying maintained his gentle and refined smile from start to finish. His handsome features looked innocent and harmless. If one didn't know him well, just based on his looks, they would only think that he was a weak young man without the strength to truss a chicken, a soft-footed prawn that could be easily pinched. This kind of person easily made others feel close to him. This kind of person was even more welcomed by the imperial court's ministers. But, to be able to grow up in the royal family, to be able to establish a batch of imperial court forces under Ling Fenghua's oppression, and also to pull in a portion of the external forces unknowingly. Finally, after Ling Fenghua met with a mishap, every step he took was so natural. Yiqing Luo didn't believe that this second prince was someone who was easy to deal with. Shangguan Liuli saw Ling Fengying at one glance as her eyes shone. Its second prince. That dainty face was an obvious bashfulness of a young lady meeting her sweetheart. She took quick steps forward and squeezed past those people who were flocking towards her as she pounced beside Ling Fengying, second prince. Ling Fengying, who had just flipped down the horse, had a smile on his face, as though he was bathed in the spring breeze, warming the earth. He passed the reins to the footboy and his arm was covered by a touch of warmth. Lowering his eyes, he saw Shangguan Liuli's bashful smile as she looked at him with a beaming face. "Second Prince, you haven't come to Shangguan residence to see me for a long time." Her tone was filled with tenderness. The onlookers looked at the two of them with dubious gazes. The second prince was so familiar with the daughter of the Shangguan family? From time to time, he would go to the Shangguan residence to visit the daughter of the Shangguan housekeeper? Could it be that the second prince was going to marry into the Shangguan family? Fifth Miss Shangguan. Lung Feng calmly retracted his hand as he silently pulled the distance between the two of them apart with a gentle smile. "A few days ago I consulted Shangguan family head about the plan to control the flood in the North Village, and it has already started to be implemented. I've been busy with this matter and forgot to thank Shangguan family head. It's this prince's fault." In just a few words, he had completely explained the ambiguous meaning in Shangguan Liuli's words. Everyone was enlightened. It turned out that the second prince went to the Shangguan residence to ask for a plan to control the flooding in Beiduan. The second prince was indeed a benevolent prince who cared for the common people. As expected, he was a smart man. He was definitely not on the same level as Ling Fenghua. If this time round, even if she hadn't opened up an entrance for Lung Fengying, not too long in the future, Lung Fengying would use his own method to open up an entrance for himself. The moment the words about controlling the flood were explained, naturally no one would doubt the authenticity of these words. Because Shangguan family's Shangguan family head was once an official in the imperial court, hence he was in charge of this aspect. Chapter 635. However, Shangguan Liuli, who was fixated on her Prince Charming, did not bring her brain with her. Or rather, Shangguan Liuli had no brains at all. She totally didn't understand the meaning in Ling Fengying's words, nor did she notice the distance that Ling Fengying had pulled apart from her. "The second prince cares about the people. Father will not blame you." Saying that, Shangguan Liuli took another step forward as she stretched out her hand to hook onto Ling Fengying's arm once again. "Second prince, even if the problem of controlling the flood is settled, you can also come to Shangguan residence to take a look at Liuli. Liuli really misses you." Hearing this sentence, Yiqing Luo almost coughed out. Should she say that Shangguan Liuli was stupid, or that she knew how to play with people's hearts? Shangguan Liuli would stop her at the academy's entrance and use Yiqing Qian's matter to ruin her reputation. She probably knew the importance of a good reputation to a woman. But unfortunately, the expression on Shangguan Liuli's face and the words she said revealed her admiration towards Ling Fengying, as well as her private ambiguous relationship with Lung Fenghua. She was certain that Ling Fengying would marry her? One must know that Shangguan Liuli's performance in front of everyone had totally tagged her as Ling Fengying. If Ling Fengying didn't marry her, Shangguan Liuli would probably be single for the rest of her life. After all, Ling Fengying's identity was there for all to see. It was very likely that he would be the future monarch. Who would dare to touch a woman that the monarch might have had an affair with? What Yiqing Luo was thinking was naturally what everyone was thinking. All of them discussed in low voices, trying to guess the relationship between Shangguan Liuli and the second prince. Right at this moment, the curtain of the luxurious carriage was pinched by a white finger, and then a sweet-sounding voice was heard. "Fifth Miss Shangguan, in the heart of the second prince, there is only the West Continent and all the common people of the West Continent." Could it be that fifth Miss Shangguan hopes that the second prince will abandon the common people and go to the Shangguan residence to see you every day? His tone was filled with disdain and mockery. Ding ding dong dong, the sound of jewelry colliding against each other could be heard. Immediately, a woman dressed in luxurious clothing came out of the carriage. Ling Fengying immediately went over and stretched out his hand to support that woman. Shangguan Liuli's hand, which she tried to pull over, naturally missed. That young lady's little hand was placed on the back of Ling Fengying's hand as she slowly walked down the carriage. When everyone saw the woman's face clearly, they all cried out in disbelief. Yi Qing Qian. Shangguan Liuli's eyes widened in shock. This woman was wearing a greenish-white academy uniform, and there were a few dazzling accessories on her waist. The most eye-catching thing about her was her face. Her makeup was exquisite, and her deliberately trimmed eyebrows were full of heroic spirit. Her seemingly simple yet graceful hair was pinned with a dazzling hairpin and hair ornament. Wasn't this the Yi Qingqian whom the monarch had assigned to King Ping, the one who was going to follow King Ping to the fief? At this time, wasn't she already in the carriage arranged by the monarch and leaving Three Springs City? She actually wore the academy uniform and appeared in the Heavenly Academy. Moreover, he had come together with the second prince. For so many years, the second prince had always kept a low profile and had a good character. He had never had any bad rumors with any woman. If one were to say that Shangguan Liuli's ambiguous words had stirred up gossip in everyone's hearts, most people still did not quite believe it. But the minute they saw Yi Qingqian, their gossipy hearts started to boil. Second prince and Yi Qingqian? Who was Yi Qingqian? Second prince's future sister-in-law. She had a relationship with second prince's eldest brother. How did second prince get involved with Yi Qingqian? And from the looks of this situation, from second prince's attitude towards Yi Qingqian, it was obviously. Chapter 636. Shangguan Liuli was stunned. Shangguan Liuli was stunned. Shangguan Liuli was stunned. She wanted to ask. The male god in her heart, holding the hand of the woman whom she despised from the bottom of her heart, walking arrogantly in front of her, how would she feel? Shangguan Liuli only knew that a cord in her brain had snapped. Suddenly, it exploded, leaving only a blank space. Her body had already started to move according to Shangguan Liuli's most genuine thoughts. She speedily walked in front of Ling Fengying, blocking his path as she stared fiercely at Yi Qingqian. Second prince, what's your relationship with this slut? The surrounding crowd stuck their heads out, expressing that they were extremely curious about the answer to this question. Fifth Miss Shangguan, what relationship I have with second prince is none of your business. Yi Qingqian's brows rose as her lips curled into a contemptuous smile. A good dog doesn't block the way. Fifth Miss Shangguan, please move aside. You actually dare to call me a dog? Shangguan Liuli's cheeks flushed red, especially that smirk of ridicule in Yi Qingqian's eyes, pierced deeply into her eyes. Shangguan Liuli bit her lower lip tightly, suppressing the surging anger in her chest as she stubbornly looked at Ling Fengying. Second prince. Don't be cheated by this vixen, she's simply a shameless slut. With a bam, Shangguan Liuli's petite body was sent flying. Yi Qingqian retracted her hand as that usually gentle white lotus face was filled with arrogance, an unconcealable arrogance. Shangguan Liuli, don't be so shameless when I give you face. Who gave you the right to insult me? This action made the surrounding students gasp in shock. In their eyes, Yi Qingqian was a pure white lotus. Yi Qingqian was the #1 beauty in Three Springs City. She was beautiful, had high innate talent, had a gentle character and treated others with courtesy. In other words, she was a big white lotus who gathered all the advantages. This was the first time they saw Yi Qingqian revealing such an arrogant and haughty expression. This was also the first time they saw Yi Qingqian slapping someone without any explanation. Yi Qingluo was also slightly shocked. She squinted her eyes as she stared at Yi Qingqian with interest. It turned out that her big sister, who was like a white lotus, had completely darkened after experiencing this incident. But that's right. His reputation and whatnot were already ruined. No matter how Yi Qingqian acted, or how she acted as a white lotus, the people of Three Springs City wouldn't believe it, and neither would the people of the West Continent. Stealing his sister's fiancé was the same as stealing his sister's fiancé. Rolling around with his sister's fiancé was the same as rolling around with his sister's fiancé. Everything was the truth. There was no way to refute that. It would be better to just turn evil, and not bother to wear that hypocritical mask anymore. In any case, he would be scolded for pretending to be innocent. Even if he turned dark, he would still be scolded. Darkening, at least he felt good in his heart, and he didn't have to be so aggrieved. He had to admit that Yi Qingqian's move was extremely good. As though noticing Yi Qingluo's gaze, that arrogant lady's eyebrows rose as her vision shot towards Yi Qingluo. Then, a murderous look flashed across her eyes. She lifted her hand and wiped it across her neck. Her fiery red lips curled into an arrogant, cold smile. Her lips wriggled as she spat out a few words soundlessly. "You just wait and see." Yi Qingluo's expression didn't change as she didn't respond to Yi Qingqian's provocation. From the time she heard the high-profound class discussing about Yi Qingqian and second princes hooking up, Yi Qingluo guessed that this big sister White Lotus was like a weed with tenacious vitality. Yi Qingqian was still alive. As long as Yi Qingqian was given a chance to make a comeback, she would disregard everything to get this chance. Chapter 637. But what made Yi Qingluo curious was, what conditions did Yi Qingqian set out to attract Ling Fengying's wild ambition? He didn't care about Yi Qingqian's current disreputable reputation, which would affect his current status, and personally sent Yi Qingqian to the academy to build up her reputation. With second prince as her backing, everyone's discussions and ridicule towards Yi Qingqian were more or less restrained. Shangguan Liuli was beaten into a daze. She sat on the ground in a daze, clutching her swollen red cheek, as blood seeped out from the corner of her mouth. Yi Qingqian actually hit him? Yi Qingqian, that slut, actually dared to hit her? Shangguan Liuli was infuriated. With a sudden sound, she sprang up from the ground, as she raised her hand and sent a slap towards Yi Qingqian's face. "You slutty vixen, I asked you to hit me, I asked you to use your unrestrained nature to seduce second prince." Shangguan Liuli had always been arrogant and willful. Since young, she had only suffered a loss in Yi Qingluo's hands. At this moment, Yi Qingqian also dared to press on top of her. Especially Yi Qingqian, who had snatched away the male god in her heart. Shangguan Liuli instantly shifted her hatred towards Yi Qingluo onto Yi Qingqian. But before she could pounce on her, a figure dashed out from the crowd, blocking Shangguan Liuli's way. Following that, she heard an apologetic voice. "Second Prince, eldest Miss Yi, my sister and I had a small conflict today, and I've been suppressing my anger in my heart, so I acted up for no reason, disturbing Second Prince and eldest Miss Yi. It's my sister's fault, I apologize on behalf of my sister." Third brother. Shangguan Liuli's eyes widened, as she stared in disbelief at the man who was tugging her. Shangguan Fengyi's hand, at a place where no one could see, pinched Shangguan Liuli's flesh fiercely. Shangguan Liuli cried out in pain, as her eyes instantly turned red, as she covered her face aggrievedly, shaking off Shangguan Fengyi's hand. Stomping her feet, she turned around and ran away crying. "Second Prince, eldest Miss Yi, I'm sorry." Shangguan Fengyi bowed his body slightly. "No worries." Ling Fengying smiled faintly as he shook his head. Perhaps some of this prince's actions had caused 5th Miss Shangguan to misunderstand. "I'm indebted to 5th Miss Shangguan's misplaced love." Shangguan Fengyi's face darkened. Ling Fengying saying these words in front of everyone totally destroyed Shangguan Liuli's reputation. Shangguan Liuli admired the second prince and was rejected by him? Once the news got out, would Shangguan Liuli still be able to find a husband? Which young master would dare to accept her? If Ling Fengying hadn't said these words, Shangguan Fengyi could still use other words to smooth over Shangguan Liuli's earlier actions. But Ling Fengying totally didn't give Shangguan Liuli this chance. Was he standing up for Yi Qingqian? Shangguan Fengyi was overwhelmed with shock as he subconsciously took a look at Yi Qingqian. But he discovered that Yi Qingqian's pretty face was covered with a layer of arrogant frost, looking at him with a smile that didn't look like a smile. That gaze was filled with a strong warning. She was totally different from the usual Yi Qingqian. It was as though he was a completely different person. Shangguan Fangyi lowered his head and looked away. He murmured, "Then I shall not disturb second prince and eldest Miss Yi." Saying that, he chased after the direction which Shangguan Liuli ran toward. Ling Fengying and Yi Qingqian held hands as he sent Yi Qingqian into the academy before he stopped in his track. Standing at the entrance of the academy, he remained silent for a moment before he turned around and returned to the carriage. This action seemed as though he treasured Yi Qingqian a lot. But in Yi Qingluo's eyes, she only felt that Ling Fengying was completing a mission. A mission which he had discussed with Yi Qingqian. There were no feelings between them. Chapter 638. Standing by the side of the carriage, Ling Fengying didn't directly mount the horse. Instead, he stood on the spot and remained silent for quite a while, as his peripheral vision shot towards Yi Qingluo's direction. Then, he leaped onto his horse and led a group of people away in a grandiose manner. Yi Qingluo's eyes narrowed as she was slightly astonished. Eldest sister she. Yi Fengyu frowned as he thought of Yi Qingqian just now and couldn't help but have goosebumps. That kind of Yi Qingqian was totally different from the Yi Qingqian in his memories. Don't bother about her. Yi Qingluo ruffled Yi Fengyu's hair. Next time you see her, just avoid her. Now, she doesn't even want to wear that gentle mask anymore. She won't be soft-hearted towards you. Yi Fengyu was stunned. Alright, go in. Don't forget to report to Teacher Guiyu. Yi Qingluo patted his face, grabbed his shoulder and pushed him towards the school gate. Teacher Guiyu should be very interested in our 3 days of experience learning. Sister, what are you going to do? Kids shouldn't ask too many questions. After sending Yi Fengyu away, Yi Qingluo didn't enter the academy but blended into the crowd and quietly disappeared from everyone's sight. Everyone's attention was focused on Yi Qingjian and Ling Fengying, so naturally no one noticed Yi Qingluo's disappearance. Yi Qingluo arrived at the back alley of the Heavenly Academy with ease. This was the place where she barged into when she first came to the Heavenly Academy. It was also here that he was assassinated by the triplets of Godless Island, the 3 evils of Godless. At this moment, the back alley was still silent, without the slightest sign of life. Yi Qingluo stopped at a dead end as her voice was chilly. Aren't you looking for me? Why are you hiding? Are you worried about being discovered? As soon as he finished speaking, the sound of light footsteps came from behind him. Following that, she heard Ling Fengying's gentle voice ringing behind her. Yes, 7th Mississippi, what's the matter, second prince? Yi Qingluo raised her brows and turned around with a playful smile. Earlier, before Ling Fengying mounted the horse and left, he specially took a look at her as his lips moved slightly. Yi Qingluo could read lips. He asked her to meet him in the back alley. Coincidentally, she also had something which she wanted to discuss with Ling Fengying. After all, the relationship between them could be considered to be a cooperative one. 7th young mistress of the night is so intelligent. You should understand why I am looking for you. Ling Fengying was indeed an intelligent man, and right now when he was conversing with Yi Qingluo, he had automatically changed his self-address to I, indicating his respect towards Yi Qingluo. Yi Qingluo covered her mouth and chuckled, her eyes were glowing. Second prince didn't say anything. No matter how intelligent I am, I'm not a roundworm in his stomach. Don't you have anything to ask me? Of course there is, but... Yi Qingluo dragged her words. Will you answer truthfully? Yes. Ling Fengying spat out a word without any hesitation. I owe you a favor, so I will answer whatever questions you ask me. That pair of gentle eyes stared straight at Yi Qingluo, filled with sincerity. As though he was expressing his determination to Yi Qingluo. Yi Qingluo squinted her eyes in interest. To tell the truth, before this, she totally had no impression of Ling Fengying at all. It was just that when he was dealing with Ling Fenghua, he deliberately investigated whether there was anyone in the current imperial family who could be on par with Ling Fenghua. From the investigations, Ling Fengying was an extremely mediocre prince. His innate talent was average and his deeds were average. Especially under Leng Fenghua's intentional oppression, his entire person could be described as ordinary. As for her, choosing Leng Fengying was based on her direct observation towards the imperial family. Chapter 639. From what Yi Qing Luo thought, Leng Fengying was much more dangerous than Leng Fenghua. The facts had proven that Yi Qing Luo had guessed correctly based on her own view of the royal family. She had taken the right step. However, would their cooperation be affected because of Yi Qing Qian? Yi Qing Luo crossed her arms over her chest. What's the relationship between you and Yi Qing Qian? As you can see. Leng Fengying replied without any hesitation. Yi Qing Luo's lips twitched. You call this an answer? What did he mean by the relationship she saw? In other words, no matter what she thought, the relationship was there, and he wouldn't deny it or admit it. You call that a truthful answer? Leng Fengying smiled but didn't say a word. Yi Qing Luo's eyes twitched as she turned around and left. 7th Miss Yi. Leng Fengying hurriedly blocked Yi Qing Luo's way. Although his facial features were not outstanding, there was a unique charm to his gentle face. I don't mean it in that way, Leng Fengying explained. A cold glint flashed past Yi Qing Luo's eyes as she squinted at the arm in front of her. If you don't have the sincerity to talk to me, then don't waste my time. I'm not that free to play riddles with you here. Leng Fengying was indeed a talent and his ability was much stronger than Leng Fenghua's. However, for so many years, under the oppression of Leng Fenghua, he was still able to form his own faction, and even after Leng Fenghua fell from power, he was able to obtain a voice of support. This also resulted in his habit of being cautious and secretive. At this point, towards Yi Qing Luo, who liked to be clean and decisive, it was extremely irritating. Since she had chosen to cooperate with Leng Fengying, she had already paved a path for Leng Fengying to quickly destroy Leng Fenghua. He would no longer cooperate with anyone else. Furthermore, in the entire imperial family, who else but him could threaten his position? There was no doubt that the position of crown prince belonged to Leng Fengying. From Yi Qing Luo's point of view, since they were working together, then they should choose to trust each other and work together happily. Whereas until now, Leng Fengying still harbored suspicions towards her. Since they didn't trust each other, there was no need to continue their partnership. 7th Young Mistress of the Night, of course, I sincerely want to talk to you. Leng Fengying gave a gentle smile as he put down the arm which was placed horizontally in front of Yi Qing Luo. I believe with 7th Miss Ye's intelligence, you will definitely be able to tell that Yi Qing Qian and I are not that kind of relationship. Reason. Yi Qing Luo couldn't be bothered to beat around the bush with him. Leng Fengying's eyelids drooped down as he shook his head. Forgive me for not being able to say. Can't say? Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes as her vision swept past his face. Because you want Yi Qing Qian's power? Saying that, Leng Fengying looked at Yi Qing Luo in astonishment, as though he was in shock. How did she know? As expected, Yi Qing Luo's eyes sunk slightly as her expression turned grave. That's right, who wouldn't want Yi Qing Qian's power? She was only a teenage girl, but she had already reached the earth-profound realm. If she trained well, with her talent, she would definitely become a rare genius girl in the world. Who didn't want to keep her for their own use? Especially, Yi Qing Qian still had the dark forces as her backing. Thinking about it. Hence, Yi Qing Qian made Leng Fengying sign a soul contract with the dark forces, using the power as bait, making use of Leng Fengying's identity and status to give herself a chance to make a comeback. The current Leng Fengying had just chased Leng Fenghua off the crown prince's position. He urgently needed to do something or use his own ability to prove that he was the only candidate for the crown prince's position. In this era where martial arts were revered and the strong were revered. Chapter 640. Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but laugh. The curve of her lips was extremely enchanting. Gu Pan's charming eyes raised slightly, outlining a long and narrow evil charm. Second Prince, let me give you a piece of advice. If you don't cultivate your strength on your own, even if you forcefully use it on yourself, it won't be yours in the end. Ling Fengying was stunned as a glint circulated in his eyes. He had totally not expected that before he even said anything, Yiqing Luo had already guessed everything. Don't use this kind of judging gaze to size me up, I'm not your enemy. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes. Of course, we will not be in a cooperative relationship. Ling Fengying was just about to open his mouth when he stopped. Seventh young Miss Yi, aren't we? The moment you got together with Yi Qingqian, the cooperation between us had ended. Yiqing Luo said straightforwardly, of course, you don't need to have any psychological burden. I will help you, not because I want to. Yes, at the end of the day they were just using each other. Ling Fenghua wanted to harm her. Yi Qingqian wanted to return the scheme to her. She wanted to retaliate, and it wasn't as simple as killing the other party. Instead, it was to crush the opponent's mentality and destroy the things that they cared about bit by bit. As for Ling Fengying, he was just a chess piece to destroy Ling Fenghua. Seventh young Miss Yi. Ling Fengying's gentle brows creased slightly as his tone turned anxious. We can have a good talk. He was an intelligent man and naturally understood that if he became enemies with Yiqing Luo, it would mean adding another strong opponent. His current foundation wasn't stable, and since Yiqing Luo was able to destroy Ling Fenghua, she naturally had the ability to destroy him. Ling Fengying had also heard from Yi Qingqian that Yiqing Luo was a person who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. It was definitely unwise to make an enemy out of her at this critical juncture. Thinking of this, Ling Fengying's tone turned even gentler. Seventh young Miss kindness towards me 2 days ago, I have always remembered it in my heart. Seventh young Miss, please give me a chance to repay you, all right? Not waiting for him to finish, Yiqing Luo had already interrupted him. Let Yi Qingqian marry Ling Fenghua and leave Three Springs City together. Ling Fengying's eyes dimmed slightly as his fingers clenched into a fist. After a long while, he slowly shook his head. Seventh Miss, other than this, I can't agree to any other request. Yiqing Luo scoffed lightly as she turned around and walked towards the front of the alley. Hearing the footsteps of the man behind her, she raised her hand and waved. Apart from this request, I don't need your help. The footsteps stopped. Yiqing Luo continued, you can be assured that I have no interest in your royal family's matters. You can do whatever you like, but... She glanced sideways and her peripheral vision fell onto Ling Fengying as a cold intent flashed past her narrow and long eyes. If your war implicates my people, then don't blame me for not showing any mercy. Ling Fengying was stunned on the spot. That gaze, even though it was only a glance, caused one to shudder with fear. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. This was what Yiqing Luo conveyed to him. As long as he or Yi Qingqian didn't offend her, she didn't have the time to go against them. This woman's personality was really hard to fathom. Ling Fengying clenched his fists tightly as he watched Yiqing Luo leave, before he silently left the back alley. After Yiqing Luo entered the academy, she didn't return to the devil class but headed straight towards the library pavilion. Today was the day when the students returned to the academy, and quite a number of students headed over to the library pavilion to borrow books to read, or to verify the homework which the masters had assigned for the past 3 days. Chapter 641. Yiqing Luo's arrival made the entire library pavilion fall into a state of silence. Many students' gazes were fixed on Yiqing Luo. There were groups of students who started to discuss about Three Springs sex matters in hushed voices. Especially earlier, the news of Yi Qingqian being personally sent to the academy by Ling Fengying had already spread throughout the entire academy. Even Yiqing Luo was being pointed at. Yiqing Luo didn't bother about other people's views as she walked towards the direction of the second floor. But she had just stepped onto the first step when she heard someone smashing a book on the table. Student Yiqing Luo, don't you know the rules? Qingqian. Another timid voice was heard. Yiqing Luo turned her head and saw Yiqing Qian standing beside a wooden table in the magical beast category books section. Her pretty face was cold, as though she was purely reminding Yiqing Luo. And beside her were 5 to 6 high-profound class female students and Lu Xuelan, who was staring at Yiqing Luo with a terrified expression. Vice President, towards those who don't abide by the Academy's rules, how should the Faculty Council punish them? Yiqing Qian didn't see the fear in Lu Xuelan's eyes as she looked at Lu Xuelan with a smile. This was obviously directed at Yiqing Luo. This was indeed directed at Yiqing Luo. Qing Qian. Lu Xuelan's face turned slightly pale as her tone raised as she berated. Student Yiqing Luo is a new student and seldom comes to the library pavilion, so naturally, she doesn't know the rules here. Yiqing Qian's reputation was already in a mess during this holiday. No matter where she went, she was given the title of slut. But after she returned to the academy, she seemed to have changed into a different person. Totally not bothered about the others pointing fingers at her. Furthermore, she was so overbearing that even she couldn't suppress Yiqing Qian. Yiqing Qian's red lips were like flames as her bright smile was different from the usual gentle like water, but it was covered with a layer of threatening coldness. Really? Then what Vice President means is, as long as you are a new student, you can casually violate the Academy's rules? I don't mean it in that way. Lu Xuelan's throat choked and under Yiqing Qian's gaze, her legs turned soft. What was going on? Why did Yiqing Qian suddenly become so gloomy? This pair of sisters from the Yi clan, each was weirder than the other. It's precisely because she's a new student and has violated the Academy's rules once, so she should be punished as a warning to others. Yiqing Qian's voice grew colder and colder as she walked towards Yiqing Luo's direction. The students in the library didn't even dare to breathe loudly. He stared dumbfoundedly at the scene of the Yi sisters killing each other. They were all sighing silently in their hearts. Surely this Yiqing Qian couldn't have been driven crazy because her reputation was in a mess? Yiqing Qian was the White Lotus representative in everyone's hearts. His ferocious appearance was really hard to accept for a moment. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as she stared at the lady who was walking nearer to her, as her slightly creased brows rose. Elder sister is really free. The closer Yiqing Qian got, the clearer Yiqing Luo could see the faint black qi in her eyes. The dark force's energy was in Yiqing Qian's body. However, what made Yiqing Luo curious was, this dark force's power didn't seem to be the kind that controlled Yiqing Ling and Yuqi Peng, but it was obediently attached to Yiqing Qian's body. Instead, it seemed like it had already merged into one with Yiqing Qian, becoming a power that Yiqing Qian could use. Suddenly, Yiqing Luo recalled the question she asked Ling Fengying. Yiqing Qian used the dark force and Ling Fengying as bait to cooperate with him. Chapter 642. Yiqing Qian's relationship with the dark forces, not simple. According to the rules of the library pavilion, other than the students from the high profound class and the class of gods who can enter the second level of the library pavilion, the students from the middle and lower classes can only read books on the first level of the library pavilion. Students like you, devil class, you don't even have the qualifications to enter the library pavilion. Yiqing Jian raised her chin in disdain, as she spat out the rules of the library pavilion word by word. Yiqing Luo blinked her eyes as her long eyelashes fluttered, looking extremely innocent. But, I've already been to the second story of the library pavilion twice. Yiqing Qian's face instantly turned black. Indeed, Yiqing Luo had been to the second story of the library pavilion twice. However, that did not mean that she was qualified to go up to the second floor of the library pavilion. Instead, he was punished by the instructor to tidy up the library. But he had not expected this punishment to become Yiqing Luo's capital to flaunt her prowess. Yiqing Qian was so infuriated that the black qi in her eyes grew thicker, as her eyes were filled with hatred. except for special circumstances, before you have obtained the qualification to enter the second story of the library pavilion, you. Barging in without permission is against the rules of the library pavilion. Towards Yiqing Luo, how could she not hate her? She was obviously the #1 beauty of the Three Springs city, the hope of the Three Springs sect, the goddess of the entire academy. Now, when everyone saw her, they would look at her with disdain. Behind her back, they kept pointing fingers at her and mocking her for being a slut. They mocked her for selling her body and herself in order to climb to a higher position. Obviously, it was Ling Fenghua who seduced her first. It was Ling Fenghua who lied to her that he would marry her, give her the position of crown princess, and make her the future emperor-empress. Obviously, from the beginning to the end, she only had Ling Fenghua as a man. She and Ling Fengying were innocent. However, no one would believe her. In fact, as long as a man spoke to her or greeted her, people would stare at them and gossip about their illicit relationship. This feeling, who could stand it? Although the days when she wore a mask in the past were very tiring, however, no matter how tired he was in the past, his heart was content. She liked the feeling of people looking at her with admiration in their eyes. He liked the feeling of standing at the top of the clouds and being praised. But now, she had fallen from the clouds into the abyss of hell, and could no longer climb back up. He was back to being himself and no longer had to wear a mask. But she wasn't happy. She couldn't accept it. There was a feeling of emptiness in his chest. All these were thanks to Yiqing Luo. It was Yiqing Luo who caused her to become like this. The more he thought about it, the more resentment he felt in his heart. Yiqing Qian couldn't help but raise her hand, as she fiercely slapped Yiqing Luo's calm and composed face. She wanted to destroy the face, the owner of the face. He wanted to dismember Yiqing Luo into 1,000 pieces, so that she would never be able to reincarnate. That intense hatred was naturally felt by Yiqing Luo. Her eyes overflowed with ridicule as she looked at Yiqing Qian's venomous eyes. When she raised her palm to swing towards her face, she directly raised her leg and kicked towards Yiqing Qian's chest. Yiqing Qian's action was totally subconscious, and by the time she reacted and tried to avoid it, a sharp pain had already spread from her chest, and she was like a kite with a broken string, flying out directly. Her eyes were filled with shock. When she landed on the ground, she quickly slammed her palm against the ground. His body spun a few times in the air before he stabilized his footing. Chapter 643. The library pavilion's rules are set by you? Just because you say I don't have the right to enter doesn't mean I can't enter? Are you from the faculty council? Vice President Lu Dai didn't even say a word. What are you butting in for? Question after question, like a bombardment, smashed towards Yiqing Qian with a pitter-patter. Yiqing Luo's eyes were filled with ridicule as her lips curled upwards. You can't go up to the second story of the library pavilion, but I can go up without any obstruction. Do you believe me? Yiqing Qian clutched her chest. Yiqing Luo's kick was totally without any reservation. Yes. As a high profound class student, even if Yiqing Qian wanted to go up to the second story of the library pavilion, she had to get the approval from the library pavilion's management and obtain the time certificate to enter the second story. She was in so much pain that her brows creased into a bundle, her features were sinister as she stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo. I'd like to see how you're going to go up to the second story of the library pavilion. To go up to the second story of the library pavilion, one must get the library pavilion's management to open the door. Yiqing Luo, who didn't have the right to enter, how would the manager possibly open the door for her? Want to make a bet? Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she looked at her with a smile which didn't look like a smile. Yiqing Qian's pupils contracted slightly. Seeing Yiqing Luo's expression, her heart suddenly stopped, somehow feeling that there seemed to be a trap? Don't dare. Yiqing Luo sarcastically tugged her lips. If you don't have the guts, then don't be a road-blocking dog. Saying that, Yi Qing Luo turned around and walked towards the second story of the library pavilion. That sarcastic smile pricked Yi Qing Qian's eyes. Her slender fingers clutched her sleeves tightly as her pretty face contorted. "All right. I'll bet with you." She absolutely didn't believe that Yi Qing Luo had the right to enter the second story of the library pavilion. Who didn't know how to put on an act? Yi Qing Luo, who had already stepped onto the second story's staircase, had a flash of astonishment in her eyes as she quickly regained her original calmness and insolence. This astonishment was coincidentally caught by Yi Qing Qian. Indeed, she was putting on an act. She became even more complacent. "Say, how do you want to bet? This is the academy. If you want to bet money or something else, it will affect the atmosphere of the academy. Why don't you bet on something else?" A clear voice came from the crowd. A slender figure walked out from the mantra book area. "Xiao Yu." Yi Qing Luo's eyes lit up. Ever since the dormitory was destroyed, she and Lu Xiaoyu rarely met. Lu Xiaoyu swaggered over with a palm-sized pastry in her hand. As she chewed on the pastry, she said mischievously, "If Qing Luo enters the second story, then you will kneel down in front of everyone and crawl all the way to the door, shouting 'Good sister, I'm wrong' 3 times, how about that?" As soon as he said this, all the students in the library drew in a breath of cold air. This gamble, it was even more exciting than gambling. He was gambling with his pride. "Xiao Yu, wouldn't this bet date be too?" Yi Qing Luo's eyes widened as she quickly walked down the stairs and grabbed Lu Xiaoyu's arm. "I'm fine." Lu Xiaoyu waved her hand with a calm face. "I've just returned to the academy, so I need something happy to stimulate the students' passion for learning. Just treat it as entertainment." "But, I'll bet." Not waiting for Yi Qing Luo to finish stammering, Yi Qing Jian had already opened her mouth. At this moment, Yi Qing Jian had already determined that Yi Qing Luo was putting on an act. She wanted Yi Qing Luo to kneel down in front of everyone, and wanted Yi Qing Luo to crawl out of the library pavilion's entrance. She wanted Yi Qing Luo to not be able to lift her head up in front of everyone. Bet, bet, bet. The surrounding students saw Yi Qing Jian nodding her head without any hesitation, and this bet was so interesting, so they were all interested. All of them cheered with their arms raised. Chapter 644. Yi Qing Luo laughed lightly, full of sarcasm. "I'm thinking for eldest sister's reputation." Her words paused, as though she had misspoken, as she covered her pink lips and shook her head. "I forgot, eldest sister has no reputation to speak of." These words pierced Yi Qing Qian's smile, as it froze on her face. Her fingers clenched tightly, as the veins on her forehead popped out. "Stop the nonsense. Are you going to bet or not? Eldest sister is already embarrassed enough, are you sure you want to bet so much?" Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes as she sneered at her. "Moreover, whether I go up to the second story of the library pavilion or not has nothing to do with eldest sister." Yi Qing Qian was pierced by Yi Qing Luo's words, as her pretty face was covered with a layer of frost. The black qi in the depths of her beautiful eyes formed a whirlpool. "Student Yi Qing Luo, this is the academy. I cannot protect you in front of so many students just because you're my sister." Yi Qing Qian clenched her teeth fiercely. "If you can go up without any obstruction, I will kneel down right now." Looked like Yi Qing Qian had hardened her heart to embarrass Yi Qing Luo in public. Yi Qing Luo curled her lips in disdain as she scoffed. Thinking of using the same method to ruin her reputation. Was it that easy? Even if her reputation was in a mess, and her temperament had a huge change, but this shell was still this shell. Her intelligence was still low. How many times had she suffered losses in her hands? But she still didn't know how to restrain herself. Not a single bit of improvement. Yi Qing Luo didn't say anything more, as her lips hung an enchanting smile, as she turned around and walked up the stairs. All the students in the library pavilion had their gazes concentrated on Yi Qing Luo. Seeing her step by step, she walked up to the entrance of the second story of the library pavilion, and stopped. The door of the second story of the library pavilion was carved with numerous totems of books, and on the door handle hung a fist-sized lock. There were only 2 keys to open this lock. One was in the director's hand, and the other was in the library pavilion administrator's hand. Yi Qingqian's face was filled with an unconcealable smile. Without the key, how would Yi Qing Luo enter? By the time the administrator discovered that all the students had created such a ruckus in the library pavilion, he would definitely throw the troublemaker Yi Qing Luo out directly. By then, Yi Qing Luo would kneel down and complete the bet. The more he thought about it, the more excited he became. "Teacher, help me open the door to the second story." Yi Qing Luo stood in front of the door and shouted. "Teacher? Who was it?" The students looked left and right, puzzled. The meaning of teacher was different from teacher. The headmaster was the one who taught and guided the student. As for teachers, it was to express the respect a student had for a certain elder in the academy. Who was this teacher he was referring to? Just as everyone was guessing, they heard a deafening voice that sounded like a great bell coming from afar. "He's here, he's here." Soon after, the librarian of the book collection pavilion walked over with big stride. That fierce face didn't have the usual irritation and anger. "A manager." The students were astonished as they looked at the administrator, who had always had a bad temper and was always shouting at the slightest thing, walking towards Yi Qing Luo. Then, the librarian smiled. "Student Yi, you came to the library to study as soon as you arrived. What a diligent child. What the hell? This was definitely AF** King hallucination. The fierce and hot-tempered administrator actually smiled at Yi Qing Luo? Yi Qingqian's face instantly turned pale. She staggered backwards a few steps, but luckily she was supported by the high-profound class students in time. She had been tricked by Yi Qing Luo again? The administrator's attitude was obviously on Yi Qing Luo's side. Chapter 645. Abuse of Authority? The administrator's gaze shifted onto Yi Qingqian's face as his expression turned ferocious. "Great. Since you say I'm abusing my authority, then report me to the director right now." Yi Qingqian's ears were ringing from the booming voice. Her petite figure swayed slightly as she looked at Yi Qing Luo and shook her head in disbelief. "Impossible, she's a waste-class devil-class student, she has no right to go to the second story of the library pavilion. Whether I have the right or not, it's not up to you to decide." The administrator took out the key and directly opened the door to the second story. "It's because there are meddlesome students like you, disturbing the other students from reading and discussing their assignments." After the door to the second story opened, the administrator's tall and sturdy body moved to one side as he smiled at Yi Qing Luo. "Student Yi, go in first, don't let." He paused and gave a silly laugh. "Don't wait too long." Yi Qing Luo's motive for going to the second story of the library pavilion was definitely to meet Ghost Doctor. The administrator naturally didn't dare to stop her. Even if this matter reached the director, he wasn't afraid. Ghost Doctor had personally acknowledged her as his disciple, so the director couldn't stop her. Ever since he knew that Yi Qing Luo was Ghost Doctor's disciple, the administrator became more and more respectful towards her. Of course, there was also his fondness towards Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo had once saved his pair of eyes from Ghost Doctor's hands. Yi Qing Luo was the first person who called him teacher. In Heavenly Academy, he had been managing the library pavilion for decades. Wasn't it his fondness towards the academy and his fondness towards these books which persisted till now? In his eyes, the students in the academy who entered the library pavilion were considered as his students. However, the Heavenly Academy had gathered elite students from all over the world. All of them had distinguished statuses and had been looking down on others since young. When they arrived at the library pavilion, no one paid any attention to him, only treating him as a librarian. It was to the extent that later on, the students who came to the library pavilion didn't pay any attention to him. As time went by, the administrator began to put on a ferocious expression to intimidate the students. But in this way, he had completely lost the students' respect towards him. "Thank you, teacher administrator." Yi-Ching Luo's smile turned gentle. She knew that right from the start, the administrator had noticed the conflict here. The administrator was probably here to dissuade them. After that, he heard her proposing a bet with Yi-Ching Qian and understood what she meant, so he purposely didn't appear. The administrator waved his hand. "It's nothing." The two of them exchanged words one after another, making the surrounding students keep on guessing the relationship between Yi-Ching Luo and the administrator. As for Yi-Ching Qian, her face was so pale that she almost collapsed onto the ground. The high profound class students who were supporting her let go of her upon seeing the administrator's appearance, and fled from the crowd's attention. "Elder sister, I'm still waiting for you to kneel down, crawl to the library pavilion's entrance and shout, 'I'm wrong' 3 times to me." Yi-Ching Luo crossed her arms in front of her chest, as she gave an amused smile. This slut, sure enough, he was plotting against her. Yi-Ching Qian stared resentfully at Yi-Ching Luo. Yi-Ching Luo and the administrator knew each other, so she could make the administrator abuse his power. But Yi-Ching Luo intentionally revealed that kind of expression to confuse her judgment. How could she possibly kneel? How could she possibly admit her mistake to Yi-Ching Luo? "Yo, elder sister, are you thinking of going back on your words?" Yi-Ching Luo's eyes blinked as her index finger pressed against her pink lips, as she nodded thoughtfully. "I had long guessed that elder sister would not admit it. After all, elder sister is used to lying." Chapter 646. The students all nodded their heads in agreement. Yi-Ching Qian was able to snatch her sister's fiancé, and even seduce her sister's fiancé's biological brother. What face did she have? Overbearingly wanting to bet with Yi-Ching Luo. After she lost, she refused to admit to it and wanted to go back on her word. She was really invincible when one was shameless. The students' faces were filled with disdain as they looked at Yi-Ching Qian with disgust. This kind of improper three-views matter, even if it was in the 21st century, was something that the world would not tolerate. Moreover, it was in Nirvana realm. Even if Yi-Ching Qian had Ling Fengying's protection, it was unable to change other people's impression of her. Disgust was disgust. Disgust was disgust. They seemed to have forgotten that the one who suggested the bet was Yi-Ching Luo. This point no one would care about. How can we forget about it? Hasn't Master always taught us to be honest and trustworthy? Especially student Yi-Ching Qian is a high profound class student and is the Academy's role model. If student Yi-Ching Qian were to take the lead and teach the other students how to be sore losers and turn hostile. Lu Xiao, you gave a light humph as she used Yi-Ching Qian's original words to counter. If this were to spread to the faculty council or the director's ears, student Yi-Ching Qian would probably have to bear the responsibility. That's right. As a high profound class student, every action and action represents the high profound class, represents the heavenly academy. We low profound class students like to imitate the high profound class students' mannerisms and actions. Student Yi-Ching Qian is teaching us what's called turning hostile and turning hostile. When I saw Yi-Ching Qian coming to the academy, I only thought that her face was extremely thick, but now I know that she totally has no face at all. One by one, the students chimed in passionately. Yi-Ching Qian's beautiful eyes turned gloomy as she clenched her fists so tightly that her fingers turned white and green veins popped out on her forehead. Lu Shuelon heard the students around her shouting intensely as her expression turned gloomy. "Ching Qian, you're her elder sister, so there's no need to kneel down. Just apologize to her." If these students were to continue making a ruckus, the high profound class's reputation would be completely ruined. "Shut up." Yi-Ching Qian glanced at Lu Shuelon coldly as her eyes turned chilly. Lu Shuelon was shocked as a flash of astonishment flashed past her eyes. Yi-Ching Qian dared to shout at her? Ever since she became the substitute vice president of the faculty council, no one dared to speak loudly to her. Lu Shuelan's face instantly turned pale. Yi Qing Qian. Say that again. Scram. Yi Qing Qian's sinister facial features revealed a chilly intent as her murderous intent was revealed. Flicking her sleeves, she turned around and headed towards the direction of the library pavilion's entrance. She walked very fast, wanting to escape from this place where everyone was making fun of her and mocking her. Lu Shuelan was thoroughly enraged. Yi Qing Qian's arrogance was simply a slap on her face. If she didn't teach Yi Qing Qian a harsh lesson in front of everyone, wouldn't others think that she, the acting vice president, was easy to bully? Yi Qing Qian, you dare to insult the staff of the faculty council. Now I will represent the faculty council to bring you to the faculty council and let you recall every rule of the Heavenly Academy. Lu Shuelan took quick steps forward and was just about to stop Yi Qing Qian. But he heard Yi Qing Qian suddenly moaning in pain as her knees fell heavily onto the ground. It was indeed heavy. When the surrounding students heard the sound of kneeling onto the ground, they all felt a pain in their knees. A heart-wrenching pain. Yi Qing Qian's hands were propped up on the ground as her palms were rubbed till a bloody scar appeared. She was in so much pain that her face was filled with tears as her expression was sinister. Lu Shuelan was also stunned by this intense sound of kneeling onto the ground as she stood rooted to the ground, not knowing what to do as she looked at Yi Qing Qian. Yi Qing Luo. Chapter 647. A cornered dog will jump over the wall, don't force me. That gaze was filled with murderous intent. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows rose as she gave a light smile. Then why don't you jump for me to take a look? You. Was she scolding her as a dog in a roundabout way? Yi Qing Qian gritted her teeth so hard that they almost broke as the black chi in her eyes continued to revolve around her pupils, gathering. Enough. You're making a ruckus in the library pavilion. What a scandal! Suddenly, an imposing voice was heard from the entrance of the library pavilion, filled with extreme coldness. The students' gazes followed the voice and saw two figures walking in from the entrance. The lady's figure was tall and slender. Her cold face was covered with frost, emitting an awe-inspiring aura. The man's figure was slender, beautiful and tall, that face was exquisite and refined, his expression so gentle as though water could be squeezed out of it. This kind of cultured elegance came from his bones. It wasn't the kind of gentleness that Ling Feng Ying showed on his face. The lady Lu Shueyu. The man, faculty council president Si Yenmu. These two appeared at the same time, causing all the students to exclaim in shock. They were still young, their attention was too easily attracted by others, and their emotions were easily led by others. Just a second ago, they were still filled with righteous indignation, berating Yi Qing Qian for being shameless, but the next second, they were already respectfully greeting Si Yenmu, the president of the faculty council. This mysterious and unfathomable, elusive Sir President. Today he actually took the initiative to appear in public. The students seemed as though they were injected with chicken blood, as they were extremely excited. President, sister. Lu Shuelan trembled when she saw the both of them walking in together, as she timidly shrunk to one side. Lu Shueyu didn't bother about Lu Shuelan, only using her icy cold gaze, sweeping past the crowd, finally falling onto Yi Qing Luo. You again. Yo, isn't this vice president? Yi Qing Luo's tone was filled with sarcasm. Lu Shueyu's cold eyes narrowed slightly. Yi Qing Luo, the library pavilion is an important place for students to read and learn, not a place for you to be competitive. Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but laughed out. Vice President, this sentence, you should say to the person kneeling beside you. Lu Shueyu frowned, lowering her head to look at Yi Qing Qian who was kneeling not too far away. Not knowing if it was because of anger or pain, Yi Qing Qian's delicate body kept trembling. A few strands of her meticulously coiffed hair had become disheveled, sticking to her sweaty cheek. He looked to be in an extremely sorry state. Lu Shueyu's face sunk as she walked over and bent down to help her up. As he helped her up, He shot a gloomy glare at Yiqing Luo, as though he was interrogating her. Vice President, don't worry. As for me, I'm broad-minded and magnanimous. I won't bicker with my elder sister. Yiqing Luo blinked her innocent eyes as she smiled charmingly. What's more, eldest sister has already knelt down to apologize, let's just forget about this matter. His words caused the corners of everyone's lips to twitch uncontrollably. Yiqing Qian almost spat out a mouthful of blood that was stuck in her throat. Calling her shameless? Who's the real shameless one here? It had reached the pinnacle of shamelessness. Okay. Gambling is strictly prohibited in the academy. Lu Shuiyu berated in a deep voice. This time, because you didn't gamble with money or anything overboard, the faculty council will not pursue further. But don't do it again. After all, she was the vice president for 5 years and her prestige was right there. The moment Lu Shuiyu spoke, the entire library pavilion turned silent. Chapter 648. A series of arrangements were made in an orderly manner. After Yiqing Qian was carried down, the atmosphere in the entire library pavilion was still chilly and a little scary. Yiqing Luo remained calm and unruffled as she squinted her eyes, as her back leaned against the second story's door, as she shot a glance at Lu Shuiyu. This Lu Shuiyu was indeed more suitable for this position than Lu Xuelan. This kind of domineering and dignified aura destined her to be a leader. Lu Shuiyu was smart enough. After fighting with her a few times, Lu Shuiyu had a rough idea of her character. He knew that at this time, he could not drag the matter onto her. Otherwise, it would be like a snowball, rolling bigger and bigger. So when Lu Shuiyu interfered in this matter, it was a series of preaching, every single word and sentence was reasonable, and she didn't intentionally target Yiqing Luo. Not only had she minimized the matter, she had also successfully covered up the matter of Yiqing Qian refusing to acknowledge the bet. You want to say that Yiqing Qian can't afford to lose? Didn't he kneel? As for why he didn't crawl to the door and shout, "My dear sister, I was wrong," it was because Lu Shuiyu had arrived in time to resolve this farce. If she were to stop Lu Shuiyu and not let Yiqing Qian leave, if this matter were to spread to the other students' ears, it would only make them feel that Yiqing Luo was overbearing, forcing their own eldest sister to kneel down in public. They might even feel that Yiqing Luo was narrow-minded and didn't know how to think for Three Springs sect. After all, Yiqing Qian was the daughter of the Three Springs sect. Wouldn't the Three Springs sect be even more humiliated? He had to admit that Lu Shuiyu's move was very good. What are you still doing here? Lu Shuiyu glared at the students around her. As soon as he finished speaking, the students immediately dispersed. Lu Xiaoyu also left under Yiqing Luo's hint, turning back every 3 steps. Only the few of them were left at the top of the stairs. Lu Shuiyu frowned and turned her head to look at her younger sister, whose face was pale and whose eyes were filled with fear. "Xuelan, you." She paused and sighed helplessly. "Elder sister, I didn't do it on purpose." Lu Xuelan lowered her head. She had always been afraid of her elder sister. Lu Shuiyu was too outstanding. She was so outstanding that the entire Lu family only had eyes for Lu Shuiyu. Ever since she was young, Lu Xuelan had grown up under Lu Shuiyu's shadow. She was afraid of the powerful Lu Shuiyu and hated the powerful Lu Shuiyu. Acting Vice President, I have already discussed it with the elders. Thank you for your hard work for the time being. Si Yenmu, who had been silent the whole time, said with a warm smile. Lu Xuelan's body slightly swayed, and her face instantly became deathly pale. This is removing her from her position as acting vice president? Did he intend to make Lu Shuiyu the vice president again? Then what was all the hard work she had put in these past few days? In fact, everyone knew very well in their hearts. Lu Shuiyu and Si Yenmu appeared together in public. What did it indicate? It was obvious. However, Lu Xuelan still couldn't accept this news when she heard it. "Little sister, you've worked hard." Lu Shuiyu gently hugged Lu Xuelan's shoulder and patted it. Lu Xuelan's body trembled. She raised her eyes to look at Lu Shuiyu and suddenly chuckled. She pushed Lu Shuiyu away and ran out of the library. Yiqing Luo kept a teasing smile on her face as she stared at them. Looked like it wasn't only her Yi family's brothers and sisters who had hidden turbulence. The other families were the same. Student Yiqing Luo, in future, please continue to take care of me. Lu Shuiyu met Yiqing Luo's gaze as her red lips were dyed with a smile. Chapter 649. The minute she stepped onto the second story of the library pavilion, the door was shut. Yiqing Luo walked directly into the pill refining room. Pushing the door open, Zhang Xian walked into the pill refinery and looked around. It was a mess, as if someone had ransacked the place. She didn't see Ghost Doctor anywhere. Yiqing Luo had nothing else to do, so she rolled up her sleeves and started to tidy up the pill refining room. Gradually, she had already sorted out a pattern, and the movements of her hands became faster and faster. Towards these medicinal herbs in the pill refining room, she was able to accurately call out their names, as well as their effects and where they were grown. Just 1 hour later, the entire pill refining room had once again regained its tidy and clean look. Ghost Doctor had not returned yet. Yiqing Luo guessed that Ghost Doctor might be refining pills in the secret room. Refining a pill was indeed a matter that required a lot of mental and physical effort. She found a few books on concocting medicine on the bookshelf and started to read. Profound Ice Immortal Root and Infant Grass had already been taken away by her, so she could start refining the pill for Ziling, that lass's legs. Thinking of that lass, she hadn't had the chance to meet her when she returned to the Yi family during the holidays, so she wondered how she was doing now. Yiqing Luo thought of Ziling limping as she walked towards her step by step, as she hid the complicated emotions in her eyes and buried her head to read the books. For Ziling, she must achieve 100% success rate. Unknowingly, time flew past. Yiqing Luo had already finished reading 2 pill refining books and was preparing to take the 3rd book when she heard the pill refining room's door being pushed open. Senior Ghost Doctor. Yiqing Luo smiled as she turned back to greet him. But she heard a sound of a heavy object falling onto the ground. Ghost Doctor leaned against the wall as he sat on the ground. That white robe fluttered and his right sleeve was already stained with blood. Yiqing Luo immediately put down the book in her hands and walked over in quick steps. Senior Ghost Doctor. Close the door. Ghost Doctor's pale old face was drained of blood. He leaned against the wall and shifted to the side, revealing the half-open door. His right sleeve followed his movement and started to ooze more blood. Yiqing Luo speedily closed the door and used one hand to support Ghost Doctor's body from the left side, supporting him to the table to lie down. Yiqing Luo's expression was solemn as she speedily tapped on Ghost Doctor's acupoint twice, and after the blood stopped, she got up and walked to the other table. Soon, he came over with some gauze and some powder to stop the bleeding. Yiqing Luo buried her head and started treating Ghost Doctor's wound. The Ghost Doctor's shoulder had been pierced by a sharp weapon. His flesh had been flipped over, and his white bone could be seen. It looked extremely horrifying. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased as she had many questions in her mind, but she didn't open her mouth to ask. The Ghost Doctor herself was extremely powerful. There were probably less than 5 people in the entire West continent who could injure the Ghost Doctor. Who could it be that could injure the Ghost Doctor? Ghost Doctor narrowed his old eyes as he stared deeply at Yiqing Luo. This little girl was indeed different from ordinary girls. When he first noticed her, it was because of her talent in alchemy and her outstanding memory that allowed her to complete his tasks in the shortest time possible. Of course, the main reason why he accepted her as a disciple was because of the teleportation secret technique she displayed. Now, he truly felt that it wasn't a bad idea to have a disciple by his side. This girl was too smart to ask questions that she shouldn't. She knew when to advance and when to retreat, and was sensible. Looking at the way she bandaged his wound and the way she applied the medicine, it was accurate and skilled. But moments later, after the acupoint was released, The bleeding from the wound had already stopped. Senior Ghost Doctor, go change your clothes. Yiqing Luo kept the gauze and medicinal herbs. Chapter 650. Ghost Doctor slowly straightened his body. The long robe on him, as it was missing the right sleeve, looked extremely loose. He narrowed his eyes as he took a look at the bandage on his shoulder. This wound was bandaged very well. The medicine used and the dosage were extremely accurate. Not only did it speedily stop the bleeding, it also stopped the pain. As long as the range of movement wasn't too big, the wound on his shoulder didn't feel any bit of pain. He had taken in a disciple, what a treasure! Ghost Doctor went to the secret room to change his clothes, while Yiqing Luo cleaned up the messy table, as well as the blood stains on the ground. After she finished cleaning, she still hadn't seen Ghost Doctor return. Yiqing Luo frowned. Could it be that, because of his shoulder injury, he couldn't even change his clothes? Just as she was about to ask Ghost Doctor if he needed any help, she saw Ghost Doctor, who had already changed into a loose white robe, walking out. He who had changed his clothes had his hair combed again. Other than his slightly pale complexion, he looked much more spirited. Senior Ghost Doctor, can I enter? Yiqing Luo pointed to the secret room. The secret room was Ghost Doctor's secret base. It was the place to refine pills. Other than the first time Yiqing Luo entered the secret room, after she accidentally fell down, she was forbidden from entering the secret room. After all, to an alchemist, the secret room to refine pills was an extremely important place. Ghost Doctor nodded his head slightly as he turned around and walked back. Yiqing Luo followed closely. After entering the secret room, Yiqing Luo didn't act like what Ghost Doctor had imagined, to borrow his pill furnace to refine pills. Instead, she walked directly to the side of the blood-stained robe which he had changed out of, as she bent down to pick up the robe. Following that, Yiqing Luo took a spark from the torch at the corner of the secret room, and burnt that robe. Ghost Doctor's pupils contracted slightly, as he went into a daze for a moment, as he concealed the deep thoughts in his eyes. This young lady was really meticulous in her thoughts. As though noticing Ghost Doctor's gaze, the young lady who was burning the robe glanced sideways as she smiled. Senior Ghost Doctor came back injured, and asked me to close the door of the pill refining room. Apparently you don't want anyone to know about your injury, or perhaps you're avoiding someone's eyes and ears. The young lady's clear, sweet voice was gentle and melodious. This blood-stained shirt will expose the fact that you're injured. Burning it is the best way. Yiqing Luo watched as the white robe was burnt to ashes before she swept the ashes to the bottom of the cauldron and slowly stood up. You don't want to ask me? The Ghost Doctor looked curiously at the calm young girl. At this moment, the Ghost Doctor no longer had her usual coldness and impatience. Yiqing Luo shook her head as she replied calmly, to be able to hurt Senior Ghost Doctor, he must be someone whom I can't afford to offend. I'm not able to seek revenge for Senior Ghost Doctor, and will bring about a fatal disaster to myself, so I might as well not know anything at all. The more you know, the faster you die. Before she had enough power, even if she knew the person who had hurt the Ghost Doctor, and knew the grudge between the Ghost Doctor and that person, there was nothing she could do. Ha, ha ha, what an interesting girl. The Ghost Doctor laughed as he shook his head. This smile tugged at the muscles on his shoulders, causing him to feel a faint pain. Little girl, you came to look for me as soon as you entered the academy. What's the matter? Perhaps it was because of his injury, or perhaps it was because of the change in his view towards Yiqing Luo, but the Ghost Doctor's expression faintly revealed some amiability. Yiqing Luo nodded. I want to ask, does Senior Ghost Doctor know? 10 years ago, the god thief who had once stormed the Nirvana realm, but had fallen in Death God Castle? Chapter 651. After Ghost Doctor saw her executing the blink movement, he recognized the blink movement's secret art at one glance and told her the origin of the blink movement's secret art. Whereas God Thief also recognized the blink movement's secret art at one glance. Yiqing Luo was clear that there was actually no connection between the two. But not knowing why, she somehow felt that Ghost Doctor and God Thief seemed to have the same emotions and feeling towards this blink movement secret art. She wondered if it was a misperception. Yiqing Luo had her doubts, so she might as well ask Ghost Doctor directly. On hearing the two words, God Thief, Ghost Doctor's eyes flashed slightly as he replied without any hesitation, "Never heard of him." Yiqing Luo didn't ask any further. Ghost Doctor had never heard of God Thief's name before, which was very normal. Even Dmo Xian's reputation was just heard of, so it was imaginable how much of an otaku Ghost Doctor was. "You know him?" Ghost Doctor raised his white brows as he asked in reply, "Why did you think of asking me?" Yiqing Luo shook her head as she played it down. 3 days of holiday. I heard of God Thief's name when I was training outside, so I just casually asked." Casually? Just because of this question, she specially came to the pill refining room to look for him. This was called casually? Just at this moment, the duo's expressions suddenly changed. Yiqing Luo's ears twitched as she heard someone approaching the pill refining room's footsteps. Her expression was grave as she exchanged glances with Ghost Doctor, and her body had already speedily moved towards the entrance of the pill refining room as she dashed out, pressing the mechanism to seal the entrance. By the time Yiqing Luo stood by the table and picked up a stalk of medicinal herb, the pill refining room's door suddenly opened. Yiqing Luo raised her eyes in astonishment as she saw 3 elderly dressed in elder robes standing at the entrance. Yiqing Luo recognized one of them. The leading elder was not anyone else, but Elder Yunxiang. As for the 2 elders behind him, Yiqing Luo had met them once before, so she didn't have a deep impression of them. "Student Yiqing Luo?" Yunxiang's vision swept around the pill refining room as his gaze fixed onto Yiqing Luo. "Why are you here?" "This is my master's pill refining room. Why can't I be here?" Yiqing Luo put down the medicinal herb as her eyes narrowed. "Where's Ghost Doctor?" Yunxiang's expression sunk slightly. He had not expected this wretched lass to really become Ghost Doctor's disciple. Ghost Doctor's character was actually able to get along with Yiqing Luo peacefully? Just entered the secret alchemy room to refine a new medicinal pill. Yiqing Luo replied without any change in expression, "Is there anything the 3 elders need from my master? Refining pills?" Yunxiang frowned and looked around suspiciously. "He has always been in the pill refining room? When I arrived, Master was already in the medicine refining chamber." Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased as a sliver of impatience and vigilance surfaced on her face. "Elder Yunxiang has now set his sights on my master?" Yunxiang's expression became extremely ugly. Yiqing Luo intentionally wanted him to become enemies with Ghost Doctor, making use of Ghost Doctor's identity and status to deal with him? Yunxiang clenched his fists and scoffed, "Don't talk nonsense. I was only ordered to check if all the teachers and staff have returned to the academy." "Following orders? Investigate?" Yiqing Luo's half-squinted eyes were flowing with light as it refracted a piercingly cold ray. Yunxiang's orders, other than Great Elder Yunrei, was the dean. It must be the headmaster's order to investigate the teachers and staff. Just a simple investigation only? Most probably Ghost Doctor's injury was. "I asked you to differentiate the medicinal herbs, and you're making a ruckus. If you can't settle down, then scram out." A stern shout was heard from the secret alchemy room, and following that, the secret room's door suddenly opened. Ghost Doctor stood at the entrance with a sunken face as he berated impatiently. Chapter 652. Sir Ghost Doctor. When the 3 elders saw Ghost Doctor, their expressions immediately turned respectful. Ghost Doctor's face sunk as his expression turned extremely ugly. "Get out if you have anything to say. Don't disturb me while I'm refining pills." The 3 elders nodded their heads as they respectfully closed the door of the pill refining room. At the moment when the door closed, Yunxiang's vision subtly glanced at Yiqing Luo, revealing a few probing looks. By the time the pill refining room regained its silence, Yiqing Luo turned her head to look at Ghost Doctor, who pretended that nothing had happened. Perhaps he had taken some pills, as his complexion was extremely normal, not as pale as before. There wasn't a single bit of blood stench on him. At this moment, Yiqing Luo was already certain that Ghost Doctor's injury had something to do with Director. Moreover, Director was starting to suspect Ghost Doctor. Didn't Director respect Ghost Doctor a lot? Otherwise he wouldn't specially set up a pill refining room for Ghost Doctor on the second story of the library pavilion. Between the two of them, what was their relationship? Suddenly, Yiqing Luo recalled the conversation between Director and a certain guardian not long ago. Recalling that Director wanted to silence her, but ultimately the main reason was because of Ghost Doctor's face, so he stopped. Yiqing Luo's heart suddenly stopped. Isn't it said that it's best not to know anything? Ghost Doctor looked at Yiqing Luo's increasingly grave expression as he sighed softly. Yiqing Luo walked over and supported Ghost Doctor back to the pill refining room as she replied, "Whatever Senior Ghost Doctor does, he has his own reasons, so I won't make any guesses." "What did you call me?" Ghost Doctor's brows creased. Yiqing Luo was stunned as she pursed her lips. "Senior Ghost Doctor." Ghost Doctor seemed displeased. "How did those old men call me earlier?" Yiqing Luo's eyelids drooped as she naturally understood Ghost Doctor's meaning. Ghost Doctor had sincerely accepted her and wanted to take her in as his disciple. Yiqing Luo admitted that she indeed wanted to learn more pill refining skills from Ghost Doctor. But she was unable to become Ghost Doctor's disciple. Unable to betray the master in her heart. In Yiqing Luo's heart, master could only be Old Man Tsang. When she came to this strange world, it was Old Man Tsang who helped her cleanse her marrows and bones. It was Old Man Tsang who taught her how to stand firm in this strange world. It was Old Man Tsang who taught her wholeheartedly that allowed her to live until now. Otherwise, she would not have rejected Guo Yu back then. Not willing? The Ghost Doctor's gaze darkened, her brows knitted together. The Ghost Doctor was astonished. Many students were racking their brains to become his disciples. Now that he took the initiative to accept Yiqing Luo as his disciple, he was rejected instead? He could tell that Yiqing Luo had innate talent in alchemy. He could tell that Yiqing Luo was interested in alchemy. As long as he trained her for a period of time, she would definitely surpass him. It was very likely that he would become a medicine immortal that surpassed the medicine sovereign. "Senior Ghost Doctor, I'm very happy that you're willing to take me in as your disciple, because Senior Ghost Doctor has recognized my ability." Yiqing Luo raised her eyes and explained, "But, Senior Ghost Doctor, I'm sorry, I have no way." Old Man Tsang's voice suddenly resounded in her mind, hurriedly interrupting her words. "This old man knows your intentions, but this kind of opportunity is hard to come by." Old Man Tsang loved this last Yiqing Luo very much. He could feel Yiqing Luo's heart that respected him. If for him who didn't have a physical body and only had a strand of remnant soul, to sacrifice Yiqing Luo's future, he couldn't do it and he couldn't bear to. Yiqing Luo was his hope, his salvation. Chapter 653. Old Man Tsang. "Lass, I understand what you want to say. I'm already very satisfied that you have this intention." Old Man Tsang interrupted her words once again. "Ever since you rejected Guo Yu the last time, I've been thinking for a long time. I can't be so selfish. He who was just a remnant soul, most of the time when Yiqing Luo met with danger, he had no way to help her. Yiqing Luo needed other help. Ghost Doctor was not only an elder-grade alchemist, his own ability was also very strong. Moreover, Ghost Doctor was worthy of trust. Lass, listen to me. Moreover, even if you become his disciple, I'm still your senior master." Hearing Old Man Tsang's words, Yiqing Luo went into deep thoughts. Old man Tsong's words, every word and sentence was filled with concern for her, every word and sentence was for her sake. Retracting her eyes and muttering to herself for a moment, Yi-Ching Luo raised her eyes after some time, as she met Ghost Doctor's probing gaze. Senior Ghost Doctor, I admit, I want to learn alchemy skills from you. I want to become a medicine sovereign alchemist. Yi-Ching Luo's voice was sincere and earnest, as her gaze towards Ghost Doctor had no intention of evading his gaze. I want to become Senior Ghost Doctor's disciple, but before this, I have to make it clear to Senior Ghost Doctor, I have a master before. Ghost Doctor's expression instantly darkened. You have a master? Who's your master? His voice paused as he seemed to have thought of something. Is it that fellow from the Imperial Palace? Yi-Ching Luo shook her head. He isn't around anymore. Not around? Hearing this tone, looking at this expression, meaning he was dead? Ghost Doctor's gloomy expression immediately resumed back to normal as he stretched out his left hand to hold onto Yi-Ching Luo's shoulder as he patted lightly. Then there's no problem, from now onwards, you're my direct disciple. Senior Ghost Doctor, you've misunderstood my meaning, my master isn't. I understand. Ghost Doctor's hand which patted her shoulder increased in strength, as Yi-Ching Luo's slender brows creased into a bundle in pain. Young lady, you must look towards the future, you're still so young, and you're a rare talent. Become my disciple, then you'll be able to unleash your potential. As she spoke, the Ghost Doctor's tone became urgent, and her face revealed a hint of impatience. Wasn't it just taking in a disciple? There was no need to go through so much trouble. Yi-Ching Luo was in so much pain that she grimaced in pain, as her ears kept ringing with urging voices. Master, master. Yi-Ching Luo twisted the fingers on her shoulder and gasped in pain. Master, can you let me go? Only then did the Ghost Doctor nod in satisfaction, and let go of her shoulders. I will impart to you everything related to refining elixirs without reservation. How much you can comprehend will depend on your comprehension. I'm injured. From today onwards, all the pills I need will be concocted by you. Following that, the next sentence made Yi-Ching Luo cough violently. Nanny? Let her refine it? Wasn't the Ghost Doctor thinking too highly of her? He had just taken him in as a disciple, and he hadn't even taught him anything yet, but he was already starting to refine pills? However, facing this master who would not go back on his words, Yi-Ching Luo could only helplessly agree. But other than the matter of refining elixirs, Yi-Ching Luo still had the last 5 days of freshman training, as well as Devil Class's unified training, and the interclass competitions training 8 months later. Yi-Ching Luo tried every means to persuade Ghost Doctor, and finally managed to convince him to spend 4 hours every afternoon to stay in the pill refining room, to listen to his guidance. Chapter 654. Otherwise the news of Ghost Doctor's injury would be exposed. After agreeing to Ghost Doctor's request, Yi-Ching Luo then found a chance to take out 2 stalks of medicinal herbs from the profound phoenix ring. Master, take a look at these 2 medicinal herbs. Profound ice immortal root? Infant grass? Ghost Doctor just took a glance and recognized what these 2 medicinal herbs were. These are medicinal herbs for treating bone injuries. I want to refine the bone healing pill. Bone healing pill? Ghost Doctor looked at Yi-Ching Luo in astonishment. You actually know about the bone healing pill? Bone healing pill, not only was it a high-grade healing pill, moreover, it was an extremely rare pill. Even if ordinary alchemists had heard of the bone healing pill, they wouldn't know the method to refine this pill. There were only a few alchemists who were able to refine the bone healing pill. Yi-Ching Luo took out these 2 main medicinal herbs, which meant that she knew the formula of the bone healing pill. From Ghost Doctor's tone, Yi-Ching Luo knew that Ghost Doctor was clear about the method to refine the bone healing pill. Yi-Ching Luo heaved a sigh of relief. She had seen this bone healing pill's formula in the 100-pill refining manual. She had memorized the medicinal herbs and the method to refine it. But if she really wanted to refine the bone healing pill, if she did it hastily, the rate of failure would be extremely high. And there was a possibility that because the alchemist was not mature enough, it would lead to the insufficient supply of profound jade heart and mental power during the refining process, resulting in a backlash. If it was light, the pill refining would fail and the medicinal herbs would be destroyed. If it was heavy, profound jade heart would shatter and the person would become a cripple. This was one of the reasons why Yiqing Luo hadn't started to refine the bone-healing pill after she got hold of the two main medicinal herbs. If Ghost Doctor knew the method to refine the bone-healing pill, with his help, the success rate of refining the bone-healing pill would definitely increase, and she wouldn't need to worry about the backlash happening again. I have a very good sister. In order to protect me, she had a crippled leg, and it wasn't treated in time. Yiqing Luo's slender fingers tightened. I've seen her leg. It's already been 7 to 8 years. 7 to 8 years? Such a long time, the bones have already formed. If I use acupuncture and bone healing pill, I have 70% confidence to turn her into a normal person. Yiqing Luo replied firmly. Ghost Doctor's eyes flashed past a glint of admiration. Looks like the disciple he accepted was not only a genius in alchemy, but also a genius in medical skills. From her tone, it was obvious that she knew acupuncture. Although they had only known each other for a short time, the Ghost Doctor still had some understanding of his little disciple's personality. If Yiqing Luo wasn't sure of it, she wouldn't casually speak up. Since she said it out loud, she must have been mentally prepared. You want me to help you refine the bone-healing pill? Ghost Doctor's words had just ended when he saw Yiqing Luo shaking her head. Her eyes flashed with determination as her lips curled into a smile. All this while, she has been the one to suffer for my sake. I also want to do something for her. At least, I want to personally heal her leg. The Ghost Doctor was stunned. Then, he chuckled softly. Around the alchemist, the luminous pearls shone resplendently, shining on Yiqing Luo's body, appearing so tranquil and beautiful. The Ghost Doctor's usually cold and indifferent face gradually softened, and a hint of warmth appeared between his brows. Little girl, although this matter is a little troublesome, I am still your master. If you need any help from me, just tell me. Thank you, master. Chapter 655. After coming out from the second story of the library pavilion, Yiqing Luo received the gazes of the other students. Everyone were guessing what was the relationship between Yiqing Luo and the library pavilion's administrator. She actually made the unreasonable administrator to allow her to enter the second story of the library pavilion. What was even more shocking was, this matter quickly spread throughout the entire academy, even to the ears of the elders' quarters and director. Everyone also saw with their own eyes that 3 elders went to the second story. However, Yiqing Luo didn't receive any punishment. As though it was a matter of course for Yiqing Luo to enter the second story of the library pavilion. Yiqing Luo didn't bother about those students' gazes, and didn't bother about those bold students who went up to ask for the reason, as she directly walked towards the direction of Devil Class. Devil Class's students were all seated in the classroom, excitedly discussing the feeling of these 3 days of experience learning. Long Yunzhan and the others sat in the corner, smiling as they looked at the crowd. Have you realized that ever since Qing Luo came to Devil Class, the entire atmosphere of Devil Class seems to have come alive? Qiao Jin's back leaned against the wall, as his legs were placed on the wooden table. Yan Xiaoyi raised her hand and patted his thigh. Of course, Qing Luo taught everyone what a team is, what's called a companion. Everyone treated each other as their own kin who had gone through life and death together, so naturally the atmosphere is different from the past. In the past, under their control, the Devil Class looked peaceful on the surface. But in the dark, all the students were competing with each other. They were secretly forming their own cliques, ostracizing those with weaker abilities. Whereas those with weaker abilities, in order not to let the team ostracize them, would ostracize those who were weaker than them. This kind of situation, as time went on, would make all the students feel alienated. Luckily, Yiqing Luo came early. Before the situation had completely deteriorated, she had saved these students. That's good. Long Yunzhan, who had always been a man of few words, revealed a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. The few of them were astonished as they stared at Long Yunzhan. Tong Ziqing sat in a row not too far away from them and could hear their conversation, as she could clearly see the smile on Long Yunzhan's face. She pursed her lips and drooped her eyelids, enduring the sour feeling in her heart. A woman's intuition had always been accurate. Because of this, when Yiqing Luo just joined the devil class, she tried her best to deal with Yiqing Luo. She knew that Long Yunzhan liked Yiqing Luo. Who wouldn't like Yiqing Luo? Even she was unable to avoid Yiqing Luo's charm. He was supposed to hate Yiqing Luo. But Yiqing Luo had a kind of magical power which made one unable to hate her. Sister Ziqing. A gentle woman's voice was heard. Enai Ruo sat cross-legged next to Tong Ziqing and placed her hand on Tong Ziqing's clenched fist. Tong Ziqing retracted her hand, and a trace of anger appeared on her cold and elegant face. Let go. Enai Ruopan shook her head. Sister Ziqing, don't show such an expression. Madame Qing Luo has the Overlord. One day, you will definitely be able to use your sincerity to move the class monitor. Tong Ziqing liking Long Yunzhan was never a secret in the devil class. Enai Ruopan was most afraid that Tong Ziqing would dislike Yiqing Luo because of Long Yunzhan. It wasn't easy for their class to become harmonious like a big family. Enai Ruopan didn't want to hurt this big family because of anything. Moved? Tong Ziqing burst out laughing. She had always thought that Long Yunzhan didn't have a heart. Otherwise, it had been a whole 3 years. She had admired Long Yunzhan for 3 years. But it wasn't able to warm up Long Yunzhan's heart.